Here, red is on.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, October. Start again. Good evening and welcome to Thursday, October 8th, 2000. November.
Starting again,
One more
John.
time!
A long day.
Is this live streaming?
I just can't seem to accept that it's November already. So, good evening and welcome to Thursday, November 8th, 2018 Selectmen's Meeting. All are present except for Pat Constantino, who should be on her way. So, I'll stand and say pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're looking forward to the election.
Yes. Yeah, that's... Oh, there it is.
I wish we brought it. We'll have to bring it in March.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to note that the Finance IT Director has asked to be removed from the agenda tonight. He was tied up with other things this week and he's not ready.
He fled the scene, huh?
No, I think he'll actually be here, but he really doesn't have a whole lot to report.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so we're going to start right out with land use report.
Okay. I think Tim is actually coming up in part for that, but I can get started. We still need to address fees. Shall I stand at the podium here?
How about you come right down up front here? I know that microphone works.
So I brought another iteration of the fee schedule.
Thank you.
Handing out right now.
Thank you.
And so I marked up in hand, just handwritten, the changes that were made since last time. I think, Selectman Fogg pointed out that, $250 on a non-structural alteration still seemed a little high on that, those last couple lines on the first block there. So we went ahead and dropped that to 150. I think that was Chairman Scanlon's suggestion. There was also a comment that this non-structural versus structural remained undefined. And so Al and I did a little bit of work looking at existing definitions that are out there, and we found one that we thought was good, and you see it appearing at the bottom there. And then one other change occurred to me that we're charging 20 cents a square foot in commercial, 15 cents a square foot for residences, and maybe we should. I had it at 15 square feet for accessory structures, and it seemed that the level of detail that needs to be gone into by the code enforcement officer on a shed or something is probably not what it would be for a house. So on my own, I kind of dropped that down to 10 cents a square foot to see if you guys thought that made sense. So that's the summary of the changes I made.
Typical ranch is going to be how long? 30 feet?
Oh, right.
And then running up the side, we're going to vary by 20, so a typical ranch would be 1,200 square feet, so you're in the higher. Why did we choose 1,000 square feet on the non-structural alterations?
It seemed like to me it seemed like a sort of just a logical step. I mean, a lot of it can be changed. I don't know.
No, you're gonna have, I don't know what percent of the houses are gonna be under the 1,000 versus over. There's gonna be a lot over though. So we both do a roof replacement, and I pay double because I've got a larger roof. I'm over the 1,000 feet.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't, if you want that number to be a different number, that's fine with me. I think that we wanted to have a lower fee for the very small projects. To me, under 1,000 square feet covers all the very small projects, and it actually brings some that are a little bit bigger than very small down into the lesser fee amount. So I almost look at it as the number 1,000 is benefiting.
If I want to reside my house, it's going to be hard to find a house under 1,000 square feet, I think.
But you're I mean, $100. I don't know. Do you want the number to be 2,000? I mean, I think
We're maintaining upkeeping us, and it's like, here, we're going to hit you with more fees. I just hit them with the assessment.
This is under the commercial and multifamily, right?
yeah,
Okay.
that's a good point. Thank you. Should have mentioned that. We're talking. You're bringing houses as an example.
Oh, I see.
I was getting confused when we were talking about.
Yeah, in a house, it's all $50, no matter how big. On a residence.
Oh, I see.
Single.
So there you
up
go,
top.
it's your business, that bottom one is the business.
But there again,
Well,
how many
multifamily.
businesses are going to have a roof under 1,000 square feet?
Like a repair. I think it would be a repair a lot of the time.
Yeah, so if I'm going to do proper maintenance and redo it all, I get hammered more, right?
If you're doing maintenance, unless you're replacing the entire shingles or whatever, you're just doing a repair, it's under
I
1,000
understand.
square feet, the
But-
repair.
But the business that came in would have been over the 1,000 square feet. If I want to reside my building, I don't think there's too many commercial multifamily under 1,000 square feet, so there's automatic big fee. You double the fee on that.
I'm semi-okay with the 1,000 square feet, even if we bumped it to 1,500.
So if somebody did get that, what would they be getting in return? Would they get an inspection for that?
Yes.
So if somebody would come out and check to make sure that it was done right, or if there was
No.
something else that was done right, that would be with, when you get a permit?
Yeah, that's, I mean, the way we have, you know, if you look in zoning, I mean, it says any project requiring a building permit either requires a subsequent certificate of occupancy or some certificate of inspection. I mean, it has to be passed. I mean, there are probably repairs that are so minor that Al doesn't need to spend much time there. He literally needs to just go look at it and then pass it.
And if Val passes it and it wasn't right in the first time, we're free and clear of it. So it's like the inspection does nothing for the business owner.
No,
Yeah,
it
you'll
doesn't.
all you'll get is your certificate of occupancy. But if there was a major flaw, wasn't picked up, but we're paying our fees to be inspected to ensure we're following code,
Well, the code appears to have been followed, so he passes it based on that.
but if there was
He's not a
a
structural
flaw that should have
engineer.
been, if you're an inspector, you're supposed to be picking up on these things. So if we happen to skip over it for whatever reason, this town has no liability.
It shouldn't be
So the
skipped over.
inspection has no weight for the homeowner other than to
No.
get certificate of occupancy.
So
That's
for the
correct.
fact that sometimes things can be hidden in such a way that wouldn't readily be visible unless there was some type of destructive.
Well, in that case, shouldn't electrical be more if you're gonna have to go follow every wire versus look up at the roof? Plumbing, water supply, make sure there are no leaks, I don't know.
Well, then we'd have to raise the rate go up there. I mean, we're not liable if we miss something. That's just the way.
Whether
it
we
is.
should have caught it or not, we're not liable, we're free and clear, but we charge you to inspect it and all I get for it's a certificate of occupancy. So it's just to me, an added tax.
This is inspecting new work, correct?
Yeah.
Alteration.
Not necessarily something that was done 50 years ago.
Right, I mean, it's
This
there are
is new
inspections
construction.
done pursuant to a recently submitted building permit, yeah.
So
Well,
I
it's
assume
not-
if he's going to go inspect electrical and plumbing, It has to be exposed, is that right?
That is true,
And
yes.
if it's covered, do we have the authority to say, take that off? You
Yes.
shouldn't have covered it?
He's done it, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he's done that before. I think, you know, you probably have remodeling jobs where it's perfectly acceptable to fish a wire, or snake a wire through a, you know, an existing,
Conduit.
But depending on the scope of the work, they would have to go pull their permit, and then once they get the wire roughed in, they
Before
would
the
have
wall
to get
is-
an inspection.
Right.
Then, at that point, he does check for making sure the wires are run properly and the right gauges of wire, there's no hidden connections. Then the walls are closed up, and I don't remember if there's a follow-up inspection on that.
well, if he's simply inspecting electrical work, I don't think he would need to follow up to make sure, because it would, you know, it's all levels of the drywall. But if there's drywall and rain, he's probably doing a final inspection for a CO, you know, if there's significant amount of work, so he's probably going back in there, depending on the size of the job.
Personally, I'm comfortable with it.
I'm certainly more comfortable with this than I was at the rate that it was before. I thought the rate that it was before was punitive even, and I couldn't see spending that kind of money. I'm gonna put some shingles on my house if I would have,
Yeah.
you know?
Not here.
But following the generalized codes, can't have the fifth layer of shingles and whatever, and having the code enforcement guy go out there, it doesn't mean it's not gonna leak when it's done, but they followed the codes. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it.
I'm trying to follow the line of thinking that Peter was talking about.
I am, except for the maintenance and repairs. I think that should be a freebie. They're trying to keep their place up.
We do have no permit required for minimal routine maintenance repair, but I think.
Replacing a roof wouldn't qualify, re-siding.
Right, no, so that
What Alan was
is,
talking about.
let's see.
Replacing siding is not routine repair, that's a major job.
But roofing is routine.
It depends. If I have weathered clapboards and I want to go vinyl siding, to me that's a routine repair because I'm just going right up over. I'm not stripping or anything.
Now,
I'm
I
just
get
sealing
that,
the
but
house.
I've installed siding and it's not a minimal type job. It really isn't. It takes
depends
time
on-
and up ladders and maybe scaffolding depending on how.
Wouldn't
tall
that
the
depend on
building
the amount of siding you're replacing?
is. If
If I'm
it's
doing the
only-
whole building, you're the $100.
I'm
If I'm
talking about
doing-
whole buildings.
Oh, I was gonna say, if I do one side of my house, to me, that's not a major repair.
And that's probably not, because periodically I'll put a
I wouldn't
couple
even hire it
pieces on.
out.
No,
So, but that is only $50, right? I mean, what we're talking about under the currently proposed, the piece of paper I just handed out, that is only $50. So I mean, I hear Selectman Fogg saying that's $50 too much, and I understand that. I mean, that's the way.
But it's the 1,000, under 1,000 feet.
That's commercial.
But that is commercial,
Well,
so I mean,
So those fees in here for,
Tax and
let's
others.
just maintenance, are set fees. You're gonna pay one flat rate. There's no longer square foot
Right.
attached to it.
no.
right.
So if I'm a homeowner, and if my whatever I'm doing for maintenance, that requires the fee, it's gonna be $50.
Right.
If you do your entire shingles,
If I'm
it's 50
doing-
bucks. All the siding, it's $50.
If I'm a commercial, then it's 100 or 50.
Yeah. And then
And
that's
then
all non-structural.
If you look at structural though, this is the only thing that's bothering me a little bit. The definition of structural work. A roof is a load-bearing component of the building,
Yeah.
but yet we've had discussions here, if I'm gonna replace my roof, That's general maintenance.
Right.
But yet it's load bearing, so under structural,
Well,
does that,
When I
does
spoke
that no
about that, it
longer
was-
fall into non-structural?
I'm putting on new putting on new shingles, I'm replacing the roof, I'm not doing all the stuff.
They're still affecting load bearing.
It still is a load bearing. If I'm, so for example, I'm considering putting steel roofing on my barn.
Mhm.
And before I do that, I have to make sure that structurally, my barn is strong enough to hold up
That's true.
the metal and
No,
whatnot.
you're absolutely right.
Because
No,
there's a
right,
load-bearing component to the snow that's gonna fall on the roof.
The shingles or the metal roof in that case, they're not load bearing, they're load inducing, they're load.
Well, they're gonna affect your load bearing capacity.
That's right.
In my mind, I think, and this came in part out of the research that Al and I did, and I'll hand out something.
And I think what I'm asking is, what is our land use interpretation
And the
of that
interpretation is that shingles and vinyl siding are non-structural.
metal roof?
And this,
Which is
when
the
I was
shingles.
originally working this up, I was referring to this was pulled from it's like Arthur J. Gallagher, it's like an insurance and risk management consultant. And I pulled this from their website, and they actually have A, which I put, and B, which I removed because I felt that's what we talked about getting rid of. Any component that forms part of the external walls or roof
Shingles.
of building. Right. So in my mind, the definition that we took, the resource, the website that we took it from, didn't view A as including B, or they wouldn't have listed B. So my interpretation, I think, is in keeping with what they intended, is that shingles and siding are not included in A.
Can we call it roofing?
Yes?
Because metal roofing isn't shingles.
Could be
I was
tiles,
giving
could be
examples,
metal.
but
I know,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
just-
yeah. And I think we do have in roofing in around here. Yeah, right. Non-structural, including siding, windows, roofing, or flooring. So it is very clearly spelled out
Okay.
there, I guess. So I hear what you're saying, but I think discluding them from this definition on the bottom is a reasonable interpretation. I understand you're saying that it could go on, and someone could possibly construe it the other way, but the fact that we have in parentheses roofing, flooring.
Okay. Guess in that case, then I'm good with it.
Make a motion that we accept the construction permit fee schedule proposed to us tonight on November 8th.
I'll second that for discussion.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. The only thing I would say is make sure we put a date on the form when it was revised.
Okay.
Now, do we currently have any fee or any permits in limbo as far as collecting fees?
Yeah, I know of one. I know of next door.
Okay, but there's in no other case, you haven't had any fees come in like in the last week or
We've
2 weeks since we started doing this?
Yeah, no, we've certainly had some permits come in. I believe that I can go back and look. I've talked with Alan Sheen a little bit about this. Our intent was to not just kind of manage it carefully, so we're not potentially charging someone something that they would be paying half as much for a week later.
Yeah.
For example, there's one individual who's erecting some greenhouses. And I told her, why don't you please wait a week before coming in so that we can make sure we're charging you the right fee. So that's kind of how we've been managing.
Okay. Okay. I have
So we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay,
One nay, and
let the record show. Bob was a nay. Thank you.
Got it.
thanks. Okay. Next thing. Anything else?
What's that?
Anything else?
I guess we could go over the budget if you want. And other than that, maybe a little, out of that, a little discussion about personnel.
Are we ready for budgeting?
And after that, you want to go into non-public, Barry?
I think so, yeah.
Do we,
That was appropriate.
do we also have any status on the few cases that we've asked over the last weeks or months about different
Sure.
investigations to
Sure.
find out what has transpired?
Yeah,
You want to give that to us in email or on camera? Either or, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to update, that's all.
I mean, I guess how about emails since it
That's
involves individuals?
Us. Fine with me.
Okay, I mean, I can tell you. you know,
Emails are not non-public.
I know, but just for the sake of not, I mean, I don't care. However you guys want to do it. If you want to ask me about.
If it's
particular-
not a non-public topic, it should be discussed in public.
Here.
Oh, okay,
I'm all
that's
about
fine.
full
Yeah.
disclosure.
So, I mean, I can think of a few off the top of my head. One would be Tilton Trailer. There was an issue where they were parked, they have trailers on a house lot. I have
Still?
been in contact, yes, with Barbara Barbuto, and she has told me that they will be removed within the next few months as part of some reconfiguring they're doing. So I'm gonna keep on that, but I do have that statement from her. What's another one? AutoServe, parking across from Lowe's, utilizing that area across from Lowe's. We recognize that something absolutely had to be done there. I can show you the email.
Has that been site planned?
Well, yes, for a three building, commercial plaza, if you will.
But not for the vehicles that are being.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Correct. So, through our change of use review process, and this is the email I sent to them, our change of use review process allows for the land use office, Al and I, to look at a proposal and evaluate whether it triggers certain impacts. And those are in the dotted bullets in the, sort of the middle of this email are those criteria. So if this doesn't impact these things, then we can say you may proceed. And in reviewing these, said, all right, they're approved to have a 3-building, actually 4 retail unit complex. They're asking to store cars there. There's certain differences. So we went through the list and we reached the determination that it does not trigger these. And so I said, you'll see below that, thus I hereby authorize you to operate a vehicle storage location, and then provided 4 additional conditions. So that's how we've addressed that one.
Question. We had a development with paved surfaces drainage system. So you have ways to contain any sort of fuel or other hazardous liquid spills. Now we're going to parking tons of cars on gravel in probably one of the town's groundwater protection areas, because it's pretty much Route 3. We talk fuel storage. Well, if you got 50 cars there, 20-gallon tanks, you got 1,000 gallons throughout, plus you've got antifreeze, oils. I'm saying that's a big change from what was approved through planning board.
Typically, whenever we have parking lots in the town or commercial businesses, we require that they install water separators in the drainage systems in the event of a spill when they're parking large parking lots.
Are there drainage systems in there?
Not functional ones. I noticed mud pits and actual pools of water on my way in tonight.
It is a bare
Just
site.
Fairground.
There's,
okay.
the last thing that was done there, I believe, were borings and whatnot.
So
Sure,
let
what was under.
Dari continue. In your opinion, it's fine.
Yeah, right. And particularly, and you'll see in the email, I think stormwater is probably the biggest concern. And it's, I walked the site. There, certainly if you have a paved system, then you've got a a freeway for any oils that drip to get into the system. That, you know, there's some added protection, if you will. In some cases, by having it bare soil, there's additional natural soil that it has to pass through. There's some filtration that takes place there, but also the topography of the site is such that you don't have it's largely contained. Yeah, in fact it's very largely contained. Yeah, those puddles, they're ugly, but they're actually, to me, a positive sign in that water ain't going nowhere.
It's like a drainage swale. So
Yeah.
typically we have parking lots that drain into drainage swales, soak in and do that before they flow directly into a water body.
So we have a few puddles in a large area that the rest of the liquid is perking down through. So unless they're parking in the puddles, I don't know if it's all contained.
No,
Even
you're
the
right.
bottles would percolate down through, so I
Some
mean,
of
there's
it.
no containment. I do happen to side with Selectman Thacker, and I have the same concerns. Parking
Too many environmental issues.
150 cars on a bare ground surface. It seems like a change of use. The other place had, 15, 20 parking spaces, so this is increasing the number of vehicles, plus drainage. And this is now increasing the number of vehicles allowed to 10 times, all unregistered vehicles, because it hasn't been site planned for car storage. So, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, thank God, but it sounds a little weak, and it is in the Water Protection District. There are very strict rules in the Water Protection District.
The area where they're parking is not in the groundwater protection district.
Really?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll do my research, but I'm pretty sure.
Route 3 has a lot of sections in it.
But I'll find out. Well, I'm sure we can confirm that one way or the other. But I still nonetheless, they're not all new cars. I would feel more comfortable with new cars.
I think they are. I thought they were all.
I've seen,
No, not at the Lowe's was where the auction cars were getting dumped.
I just have concerns
For a
about
smell,
the
yeah.
potential. If you want to know about unintended consequences, go to the VIP up at exit 20. They have oil and sediment separators and what have you, and they have a parking lot that puts it right there. And you go up and you look at the parking lot, and it's multicolored rainbows of stuff all going directly to the drain, which goes directly into the river and stuff. Unintended consequences, because that stuff floats on top of the water. It's not an oil thing that can be separated. It mixes right in, MVT, TBE, whatever it is.
So, I mean,
I'm very concerned about the quality of the water.
so it does seem that largely the benefits of pervious parking areas are universally understood and accepted.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I guess, hope that we can do that here. They are parking cars on a semi-pervious area where that offers environmental benefits. Those cars, I think, and the idea that those cars are just oozing contaminated fluid, I think is off base.
No, you might get 1 out of 400.
All you
How many
need is
do you
one.
need?
One gas tank to go there, and gas is going to perk a lot faster than water because it's a much lighter and volatile.
Are we doing the best we can do for our potential water problems?
The best we could do for our potential water problems is to cut off any activity in the town of Tilton.
Okay, well okay, I get that. In this particular case, are we covered? Because if there's a problem there, there'd be another
I think he's really
conversation.
stated it right here. I mean, I think
I hear
Downey
what he
is
stated.
very clear and I mean, this is where his expertise lies. I mean, we
That's
hired
true.
him for that kind of expertise. I have no background in knowledge. Do you have that same type of background and knowledge that
As
Downey
far as
has?
no, I have more than a passing familiarity with water quality issues,
Okay.
but certainly not the expertise that Dari does. And so that I would say I would have to,
I can't say is from
Go
being on
with
the
it.
Conservation Commission for too many years. That typically we do require some type of oil water separators if we have a big parking lot where there's fueling and stuff like that going on. In other parking lots, what we require is that the water is collected and goes to drainage swales, which are treated with certain types of plants and that, so it doesn't flow directly into a brook or open water source. Such as if you look at the Tanger outlets, the water from there flows into the ponds that are out front that are not fire ponds, but they're treatment ponds where certain plants consume oils and that. Now this is a kind of high volume, a lot of cars in there, so I would think there should, you know, maybe a second opinion from, does DES require site plans, or there's best use, but, you know?
No, not that I can think of in this case.
I couldn't think of any.
Yeah.
Because if we did require a site plan, just as let's say we did, that kicks in all sorts of other rules, doesn't it?
Yes.
Then things would be different. Because then they would have to account for the drainage, and they would have to, you know, more than likely,
Right.
having sat on the
There-
planning board, there would be questions and what happens to the water and the what ifs and what have you. So we're unilaterally allowing them to forego that process, which hopefully would never be a problem. And next year at this time, they've got their 4-unit thing, or they've got twice that many cars in there. And you know what I mean? And I don't know. You see where my concern is.
Yes.
Could we make a stipulation to them that on that site, there shall be no fueling or repairs done of any vehicles, and vehicles should be checked prior to being parked there?
I think without even saying anything, I think we could do that. I mean, I shouldn't say without saying anything,
Well, sneak it
without
in. though.
modifying this, even what I said, because I believe certainly repairs would be above and beyond what they requested permission to do. And I think fueling probably is too. I mean,
I've never seen anything. They drop them off, they pick them up.
but I can
What
certainly.
happens is, you know, you get 400 cars, and you fire them up in the winter, warm up, clear them off, and a couple of them are gonna run out of gas. The
And
guy
maybe
comes
so.
down with the gas can, and he's cold, and the gas
Yeah.
can leaks,
Well,
so,
I can convey that to them.
and I think that would be a
Okay.
Am I wrong in thinking that they were permitted for a gas station there, or pumps
Yes.
in the other thing? So they already have a permit for pumps.
But
So,
Yes,
they
that's
built
not,
pumps.
All sorts of strange.
that's not
stuff.
That goes
comparable
with the
because the
separators
requirements the planning board put on and their own
The
engineers
the
put on
pumps
to
would
even
require
have
the
the pumps.
drainage. Yeah, the pumps would require.
Certainly, we would not let them put a gas pump out in the middle of that dirt.
You know,
think
not
so.
to drive a pickup truck with a fuel tank and fuel cups, or
Okay.
to be fueling cars, I'm not sure.
I will make sure to tell them, you
Don't
know,
let them run out of gas.
no refueling, no repairing.
Let the record show, I think it should go to the planning board. There's too many environmental issues.
My concern is knowing that site is filled in. It's not as though it's draining down and it's going to hit bearing soil. That is a filled-in site. I've read the reports. I know what's underneath it, so I have that concern. My question is, which is also a concern, is how long will they be allowed to use it in this way without site plan?
We didn't set a date. I believe that, market forces will result in something happening there soon. But that's all I can say. I mean, I
So-
didn't set a deadline.
Can we set deadlines to these? In other words, I'd hate to see this in perpetuity. I mean, let's,
Yeah,
you
10
know,
years from now.
10 years
Another
from
reason
now.
for site plan.
So this permit will be for 1 year, and then come
Well,
back?
I could do that in the future. This email's already been sent. So,
But I think the Board of Selectmen could require you to tell them that we would like this to be
Annual review.
reviewed,
I'm sure
say
you're.
every 6 months.
Whatever you want, right?
Well,
Well, we are the
Yeah,
enforcement
I-
authority, and understanding where you are, if we order it to you,
Sure.
then your head's not on the block.
Yeah, that's.
But I'm just thinking, any of these types of reviews, there should be at least another review in 6 months or
Okay.
quarterly
Okay.
to make sure the site is being used accordingly, that something hasn't changed to say, this should be site planned. Certainly an entity shouldn't get something like this and they're done. Now they can go forward and use that
20
bare
years they
piece
can
of
be doing
soil as a parking lot for as long as they wish.
Yeah.
That shouldn't take place.
The other part.
And there should be a trigger of time that, all right,
Review.
this activity will have to stop after a certain length of time, and you will have to go in for site plan review, because the planning board would never allow a parking lot of this size to exist on bare soil.
Realistically, I wouldn't think.
That's my input.
That's why I keep saying, back to the planning board.
The other
Parking cars is different than a strip mall. Strip mall, we come in, do our business,
Well,
leave, you'll have
The
employees there for
strip
maybe 8
mall
hours.
has been site planned, so the cars coming in, all has been taken care of. The
traffic flow.
pavement, the berms, it doesn't allow the runoff to go down in the back to the brook,
Oil
the
separators,
drainage,
yeah.
oil waters, all of that's been taken care of in the site planning process.
And also the
That's
lane
what's
widths
missing.
for fire safety,
That's what's missing here.
fire safety lane permits. The other part is, what is that classified as now, just open land? Is this now actually, because I have seen people like looking around cars, or whether, I don't know if they're just auction buyers or what, but is this like a car sales lot? Are there, are you for that?
They
Is
say
that-
no, there's
should-
no, I
should that
walked
be
it and there's no
taxed?
prices in there, you know, there's no
This
prices.
is the storage of their product that they're selling.
Mhm.
And is that being taxed as a product storage area, just, or is it as just open land?
That's an
I'm guessing
assessment
it's being
question.
taxed as a commercial property without a building, and it's in a high level place, so I'm sure they're paying.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are. My concern isn't for how they're getting by with it, you know, for $1,000 or whatever, so much as what could happen. I don't want to see anything bad happen at that site, because then I'd feel responsible. I have a choice right here and now, or I can second guess myself in 6 months if there's a catastrophe, and hopefully there's not, and probably there won't be, and if there is, I'll feel real bad because water's my thing.
So I'll know we're looking at a time period to come back to us, or we'll recheck it, so it doesn't become grandfathered use,
Mhm.
right?
What about the one
Not
on,
me.
what about the one on,
I'll be right back, I'm gonna check.
what about the other one on Cedar Street?
On where?
Refresh my memory, I'm sorry.
Can we finish with this one before we move
I
to
thought we
another
were
site?
finished.
Well,
No.
I just want to make sure it's clear.
6 month review. The last I heard, you were gonna do a 6-month review. Yes?
There should be an end time for this.
Okay.
This should not
For
continue.
this year, for this paper?
For this use on this piece of property, or these pieces of property, there should be an end. They should.
We'd be willing to give them a period of time to get this in order. Certainly, I'm not saying move them tomorrow.
Or
I mean,
come back,
We could, but
come back and we could reissue it.
Well, their
Yeah, don't keep
alternative, if we give them this.
1 year.
This can continue, let's say, for 1 year. When the 1 year is approaching, their alternative
And
is to
review
come
it.
to site plan. If they want to continue to use it as a parking lot, have them come to site plan.
It could be a very simple site plan.
So 1 year,
in addition to that,
1
there's
year.
a house next
1 year.
door.
Hang on, let's-
Sorry.
it's
That's
just
part
one-
of the commercial
So
property.
1 year and no fueling or repairs on
Okay.
on premises.
And when you say 1 year, is that 1 year to come back for the review, or it's 1 year?
I think the code enforcement should be reviewing this no less than every 6 months. I think personally, I'd like to see it every quarter
Yep.
to check on our cars leaking, or what type of cars are being parked there, what activity is taking place.
So in the 1 year, after the 1 year, and I think this is what Gene might have been getting at, are we saying that the requirement is that the land use office has to revisit this, or that something it has to move on to another
That has to
process?
move on to site plan review.
Okay,
So what I have is a quarterly review by the code enforcement officer to make sure that there are no issues. And then after 1 year, if they want to continue with it as this use, it would be site plan review.
I agree
think
with
so.
that.
Peter has, excuse me.
Are we including the resident lot along with this one? Because looking at the map downstairs, the residence is in the groundwater protection area. The other lot just misses it.
So, and that leads to my question that I was going to ask. Did they put the house in the same lot as the large field? Are those two separate lots, or
they're two
did they
separate
merge?
lots, they're 80 and 96. Yeah.
Okay, so you have, let's call 80 is the field. 96, there's a significant number of cars in that.
Right.
Not tonight, but oftentimes you'll find 10 or 12 unregistered vehicles in that residence,
Yeah.
which is a code violation, as far as I know. I can't have 20 unregistered
Well, that's
vehicles
part
at
of the
my
site
house.
that's approved for, the large, they're both of those properties.
That residential property
So
has
for-
become a commercial piece of property. Because-
Even though the
because
lots
the-
aren't merged.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, the residential use was abandoned. Oops, I'm sorry, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And we site planned it for commercial use.
Yeah, it's in a commercial area.
So
I
he's
get
no
that.
longer a residence.
It could never be residence again? Why not?
I don't know, true.
Because the use was abandoned and that
It's
it
in
became
ours.
commercial around the residence.
Hmm.
We have some other lots in the flats across from the hotel that are in the same situation. If those residential uses are abandoned, they revert to what that
So our previous discussion on we
zone
said,
is.
1 year or 6 months?
What I have is quarterly review by the code enforcement officer. And after 1 year, if they still want to use it as they're using it now, that it needs to go to site plan review.
Okay, we'll say that's, at least for now, we're going to say that is for the open lot. Okay, now what do we want to look at for the house lot now?
The same.
The same thing?
That was my question, and then Catherine informed me that it's all part of one big project, except for it's two lots.
So it should be the same.
Even if one is in the groundwater protection zone, okay.
That would be the difference.
I would say that I think it would be appropriate to add that they cannot put cars in the groundwater protection district. That seems.
Without site plan review,
Sure, yeah.
because they have them
Pretty much
right across the
that'll
way.
take the 95% of 96 East Main.
That surprises me, I must
You
say.
got that little drainage swale coming from that little pond down there, and that's what they're tying it off with.
Oh, okay.
And
It's right beside
the
the
issue of the drainage
Ice House Pond
notwithstanding, they've been site planned for those uses at those locations.
So
There's no site plan involved at all here at 96 or whatever the house is.
So where we're at the quarterly review, 1 year for a site plan for both lots, and where are we standing with the,
And then you also said you cannot put cars, they'll be directed that they cannot put cars in the groundwater protection district without site plan review.
Please,
everybody, I know.
you might explain.
I'm
to
gonna
them
be
a
the
little bit better.
I'm gonna be the country-minded one tonight, I guess.
I'm totally against this.
Okay. What?
I want site plan.
Because we hired somebody with the expertise and why wouldn't we just fire everyone at town hall for all their expertise? We could do away with the finance manager and do our own budget. We could do away with the environmental background that this guy's got. And we asked him to come up with plan, he came up with a plan, and now we're nitpicking it. We do this to everybody,
I
every
think
employee
this
that
I
is
comes out.
think we
nitpicking.
have
Wow.
a good plan. I think we have a good plan, and Dari's added to the plan. He's been part of the conversation, and I don't think it's an insult to his intelligence at all.
I do.
I think,
Let's just get rid of site
I
plan
think we
review.
benefit from it, and we have tonight.
Do you think that that's out of line, the quarterly inspections and the 1-year site plan review?
So I think the quarterly inspections are a great idea, and so I definitely don't think that's out of line. I think the no fueling or repairing makes a lot of sense. No cars in the groundwater protection district, I think, is good. I think the 1 year and then requiring them to come back to site plan review, that I would prefer we not do that, because again, I do believe this conception, this belief of the costs and benefits, the benefits of parking on pervious or overflow parking. To me, they carry more weight than they seem to in the minds of some of you. In other words, the benefits of allowing cars to park on pervious surfaces are significant. And what I'm hearing from the board is, oh no, if they're not going to pave this, then we're going to hold them to higher regulatory standards, when actually we should be realizing that there are significant benefits to the fact that they're not going to pave it.
When I suggested the site plan after 1 year, it was because of my experience on the planning board, which is many years, the planning board itself would never allow a parking lot of this nature, of storage vehicles, to exist without a site plan.
Okay.
Regardless of pervious, impervious, they just would not. I understand that, good site planning suggests that we should be friends to our commercial developers and our businesses and not try to be detrimental. And I think that this decision does just that Dari and I have come to. But I do think the consideration of the planning board needs to be taken into effect here. And as I said, they would not have, if they had come and asked the planning board, can we park here, use this as parking like this, we're good to go forever? Absolutely not.
So if they came this time and they talked to our land use department, and our land use department determined that nothing is required, we're adding these extra things, why would next time also something be required if it wasn't this time?
So, I don't know if the planning board would agree with this, what's being done. I'm saying what I believe, and what I've seen in the past is that they would want to site plan a parking lot that is storing vehicles. Not a parking lot that cars are coming in and out, a small parking lot, but a parking lot of this size. Yeah, they'd want to site plan it. Actually, what am I saying? They'd want to site plan all parking lots.
Yeah, I think that,
You should have thrown something out. I said that they would.
I don't think it was a bad thing. I think it will probably just add some tips in.
Well, I think it gives them a year to find an alternative to their overflow. Certainly if the property is developed as it was site planned, they would still be looking at finding an alternative of storing these vehicles somewhere, would they not? So I don't think it's a hardship to them. I think it gives them a year of having the storage area and coming up with something they'd have to come up with anyway.
And I worry about the fact that if we went just with this, that allows that now allows that use in perpetuity.
That's my concern.
You know what I mean? And that's my
But
And I'm
right,
saying, I
but that
think,
comes from a standpoint of mine that it's not, that's a whole, if you all of a sudden a gas tank lets loose and dumps all the gas in, that's a, or you're dumping massive amounts of harmful fluids, you're breaking the law. You know, there are issues. There are cleanup. You know, you're responsible for that mess. It's really outside of town. Right? You know, we're talking state and federal at this point. So this is not something that's just, you know, completely unregulated. I think if they were to use that the way they're using it from now until the end of time, that would be better for the environment than if they develop it into a 3-unit subdivision and use it that way from now till the end of time. You have a higher infiltration rate. More water is making its way down into the ground. The ground is serving as a natural filtration medium for that you know, not runoff, but that infiltration. There are significant environmental benefits. There's you know, greenhouse. You know,
So I have to remind us all here that we have a piece of property that was a former gas station where there was no asphalt, where cars were parked and utilized for a very similar purpose. Granted, there were repairs being made, but we are to this day having to monitor the contaminants in those soils from that activity. Right next to the river. And this property backs up to the river. So I gotta wholeheartedly disagree with what you just
Well, the
said.
individuals involved are completely different, though. The piece of property you're talking about was operated by an individual with absolutely no regard for environmental law. as
But
far as I can tell.
that's not the portion that we're having to monitor. It's where the garage was.
I think one of the good examples is, for instance, Lowe's, who has about the similar amount of parking, I would say, cars at any given time. And they were required to make a impervious surface to park all the cars on. All the water from those was collected and then dispersed directly underneath where the cars are parking through a drainage system of pipes. So whatever's leaking on top actually goes into the draining, and then we set it up and designed it so it would go back into the ground underneath it.
Actually flows into the detention pond.
Not actually, it flows underneath, and then we had a system.
The
Part of that-
overflow goes in the detention
Yeah.
pond.
Part of that drainage was also to deal with the wetlands it's sitting on. And we also know that that
The
failed.
actual-
But nevertheless,
So,
regardless of the environmental, having them site plan in a year, it keeps them from circumventing the site, people from circumventing the site plan process.
So we're all good with the quarterly inspection. We're all good with no fueling and that.
Yeah.
The only thing we seem to be a little different on is the site plan and that. So we should make a motion and decide, I don't know if we can hash it out amongst ourselves further.
I'm gonna go with Tara's recommendation. I'm gonna
Which is?
to let it go in perpetuity if that is what they decide they're gonna do with their piece of property. I'm just gonna go, and I understand about pervious and non-pervious, and I understand all that. I can't believe they're gonna use that for parking forever, but in the shortest of terms, I don't see the environmental harm necessarily. I mean, somebody can go there and punch holes in all the gas tanks, but you can't plan for everyone. You just can't.
Can we do it as a motion, Peter?
That brings up an interesting point. If we go by Dari's plan, isn't that now tied to the lot with perpetuity, so I can sell off to whoever I want and they get to do it?
That's right.
Car storage, yeah,
This goes stays with
That's
the property.
that's right.
And we
Well,
just
I'm ready to
implemented site planning.
Does somebody want to make a motion? I need some type of motion so we can vote.
Motion that I would make is that we, what did we say, inspect it
year.
every quarterly. That after a year, they have to either stop the use or bring it back for site plan review. And I forgot what the other one was.
No.
No parking cars in the
No,
Yeah,
just fuel.
groundwater protection district.
groundwater protection district and no
Site
fueling,
plan review.
no fueling, repairing, etc.
We have a
So-
second.
I was
Read or
just
read
gonna,
it back.
I was just gonna read it back, so.
Thank you.
It's quarterly review by the code enforcement officer after 1 year. If they still want to use the space in that way, they have to come to site plan review. That includes both lots, house and the open lot. They can't put cars in the groundwater protection district without site plan review, and there is no fueling or repairing of cars on the site.
Okay, so that's the motion. And do we have a second? No second for that motion? I'll second the motion. Any discussion, everybody's clear on it, so we vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So could I
Opposed?
have hands? I didn't see.
Aye.
So, okay, I
Two.
have Selectman Justman.
I'm
Opposed?
opposed.
Oh, you're opposed. Okay.
Yes,
John Scanlon,
4.
4.
I'm for.
Catherine Dawson. And
Pat is against.
Opposed.
And Peter's opposed.
I'm opposed.
Okay, so motion failed. Have another motion.
I'll make
Have a
a motion.
motion, oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we do all those things in Catherine's motion with the exception of the 1-year site plan review.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 It's
I'm
not
gonna say
perfect,
aye,
but
too.
it's better than nothing.
All those opposed, say
Let
aye.
the record show.
So we got something.
So we do what, quarterly reports for 1 year and then they're free to go, right?
Quarterly reports.
For 1 year?
Not for 1
No,
year.
it's
1 year was
reviewed in
removed.
1 year. It's
Any
reviewed
mention of
in
1 year
1
is
year.
No.
Well,
It's not.
No, I mean, you took that out,
We
but
took that out. No,
I
it's not.
understood
We
the quarter.
review in 1 year. That's the, that's what's part of the discussion.
No,
No,
that wasn't
that
part of
That
the
was not part
motion.
of my motion.
That was the failed one.
he removed that, but my understanding, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but my understanding is that the quarterly reports would also continue.
That would have been my motion.
Yes,
Okay,
which is the same as
okay.
a yearly review, only it's better because it's quarterly.
4 times a year. Are they complying with the environmental? If they aren't, then there's a problem, and that's a whole other thing. But every quarter they get a walk, site walk, whatever you guys decide to do to make sure they're in compliance.
Okay.
That's
All right, what about now? Are
So-
we done
so
with that one now?
No, so they get 4 inspections a year and they get no fees charged for those inspections, am I correct? It's not in any permit fee, right?
No permit fee.
So they get it for free, but I do a minor alteration, I've got to pay 50 or 100 or 150 bucks, okay?
That's settled.
Yeah, and I will say, we don't have a system for charging for annual inspections of best management, like stormwater
Best management
installations.
purposes.
Yeah, so maybe one day we want to look at that, I don't know.
Typically, in the past, when we did something like that, we had them donate, put money in, to a fund.
Oh,
They
okay.
had them amount, and I think the Conservation Commission
We've never charged a fee for enforcing zoning code, which is basically what you're doing
Yeah,
here.
right.
we do have a fund for places such as.
Conservation does?
The zoning board created too, it was under the permits for Lowe's, for Home Depot, for many other departments. Money was set aside to cover for inspections.
You're
Walmart,
talking about engineers.
Walmart,
Like
was
third
part of
party
that
review.
process.
Third party review.
Okay.
For yearly inspection.
No, they're the code enforcement officer. That's what your property taxes pay for.
Okay. I'll look into
We
it,
do a
yeah.
fund set.
Okay.
So we're all set
No,
with that one topic, right?
I still want to know about Cedar Street.
Okay, next
Well,
one.
that's
Oh,
that's
Cedar
a
Street.
different
Okay.
project.
Is this, are we talking a driveway?
No, we're talking about nine unregistered, non-registered trucks that are in a parking lot.
Private residence.
I'm afraid I'm not prepared to talk about that one. I apologize.
We brought it up about a month ago.
Okay.
Are they outside or inside?
It's outside.
Is it the one that used to be a fueling truck place or something? Remember something about that?
Okay, if you want, I can come back briefly next week to update you, if that fits, or...
If you can't do it now.
Yeah, I'm definitely not prepared, right, I can't, yeah,
You can email.
sorry.
Email.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'll probably be driving home tonight, it'll dawn, oh, yeah.
Why don't you email the town administrator and she'll send it to us all?
Okay.
You'll send you the information.
Okay. Next
Here,
topic.
I'll give you the address. I'll give you the place.
All right.
It's the former Daniel's Artesian Well place.
Oh, okay.
It's on the right, across from Maple Court.
Okay.
Question on Bittern Lane. Number 10, are they in full compliance of their approved site plan? Is everything outside of any?
Number 10, no. They're coming into the planning board next week. They still have work to do on that site.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, we have a budget now?
Yes. You still with
That was
us?
easy.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, budget. We have a few changes. I think. Do you guys want to ask me questions, or you want me to give you a little review? How's this?
Are you gonna pass something out?
What's that?
Where is it?
Okay.
Where is it first?
I'm going to hand out two things. And these are materials
Page
that Tim.
3.
Well, he's got additions here, so.
I need to hear about the 40.9% increase and the 28.6% increase and 18.
All right, very well. There we go. Now we know what to talk about. And then here's the. You guys already have this, or would you like it? This is land use isolated, and thank you Tim for helping.
And did you change this from when Tim gave it to us? No, all right. Got it.
It's the same?
I believe it is. Okay, so you want to go right to the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go right to the biggest number there, the 40.9. This would add, well, it would add personnel time for assistants above and beyond the 16 hours that Sheena is currently working right now. I think I've identified an opportunity, and through conversations with other folks, an opportunity to we had a very successful student worker come in, and it was really benefited the department considerably. That was a high school student. I think there's possible opportunity to replicate that in some way, but actually shoot for college, undergrad and possibly even graduate students who are on a career path to become a planner. And to bring in someone like that, our site plan review process, I think, has improved in recent years. We've added levels of complication, but that adds time. And I think it would be very beneficial to both the town and to whatever individual we bring in, to have someone share some of the tasks associated with processing a site plan review case from beginning to end. So that is largely what I'm sort of envisioning potentially using that additional funding for. Another option, I guess, would be to just simply increase Sheena's hours. She's really doing an excellent job with handling the administrative load. We brought in the iWork system. She and Al are working very well together to utilize that system to the town's benefit. She has our scanning, the level of data that we easily have at our fingertips has really increased as a result of that. So I don't question that she could handle additional work. However, I do also believe that it might be a really good opportunity to instead go with like I said, an individual who's on a career path to become a planner, who's going to really, we'd mutually benefit from an arrangement like that.
How
So
many hours are you talking about here?
Well, the thought was 6 hours.
Can you get a guy, person,
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
have to be a guy,
I mean,
6 hours
a week.
A week.
Yeah.
And
Just
how much?
well,
$16 an hour?
yeah. I mean, I guess that would be at that rate. So we'd have to look at, but just to, I guess the exact details of the exact number of hours they put in would be something we could identify in the future.
Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't waffle at a budget hearing with the Board of Selectmen and say, I put money in the budget, but we can identify the rate that we want to charge and the hours we want to give them.
I don't want to, maybe we want to, I think that if we, so I guess the reason I'm considering, different answers is that if all things stayed the same with Sheena, then that would mean 6 additional hours at $16 an hour.
Right.
But I don't know that that'll be, let's say Sheena, we add 2 hours to her, then it would be 4 hours for this. To me, it's some financial equivalent of six hours at $16 an hour. So that I can be exact about.
Better understood.
Okay.
That's how we plan it.
does that kick
Okay.
Sheena into a different category of employee? So it's not a benefited position?
No.
Sheena
So-
would be willing to work the extra 6 hours?
Well, I think that's something, she's, that we'd have to have a conversation with her about. She and I certainly talk about it quite a bit, and it's only been positive to this point, but it hasn't been a real opportunity placed in front of her.
Yeah.
Someone who has, obviously, family, has potentially other means of income, we'll see.
So if it's a student on I'm sorry, Catherine,
No, go ahead.
if it's a student on an intern or a student on a career path, couldn't we get them in for, a year or two at a substantial less money? And
Yes,
maybe more hours?
very
or no?
possibly. Yeah, that's the other piece that kept me from giving you an absolute answer. I did internships. I did an internship for free one summer with the Forest Service. Who knows? Maybe we can find someone who do. Jeremy was free, and so certainly we're not going to turn something like that down.
Rather than put something in the budget, couldn't we just say, go ahead and find somebody that's gonna, do an internship for X amount of dollars for this period of time for this much money? No.
Yeah, but wouldn't we have to put that in the budget? That money has to come
Yeah,
from somewhere.
we put it in the budget, but it wouldn't be, identify 6 hours. It would be sort of like, this is the project, this is what we want, and this is the end of the project term.
Well, and Daria and I had discussed what maybe some type of stipend or compensation for somebody in a university program, maybe even a college course, somehow doing something like that. But the equivalent of the monies that we kept coming back to was roughly this, this $5,400. So in order to make sure that, worst case, that we had the taxes covered, for Social Security and Medicare, that I put it in as an hourly basis. But it also fit in his scenario where it could be this or it could be that. So this way we're allowing for taxes to be budgeted as well.
Are you better gonna identify once we get closer to town meeting that this is the way that you actually want to go, so that we're not standing up in front of town meeting and saying, well, we might want to go this way, or we might want to go that way, so that we're not annihilated at town meeting?
Yeah, that
Sure.
would be good for us.
Sure.
Let me get this. You're kind of like testing the waters with us, see what we think. This is the ballpark number, but you can probably come back with a little more information on what as we, in the next month or so?
I certainly think so. I think there are, I think anytime I come to you guys with an idea, there's a certain amount of testing the waters, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and I don't want to go off too far in the direction that is not going to
If
work
it's-
for us
if
as a
it's-
town, so.
The door's getting slammed, you're going,
Yeah, I mean, certainly, if you would like for me to do so, I'll work with Tim and Jeannie to further develop this idea. Absolutely.
What I would need is to know
Peter's
what
way.
we're getting for our $5,000.
Peter's waiting patiently.
Well, I heard 6 hours per week, but if I'm looking for a college student, generally I'm going to be in school spring and fall semesters, so are we looking at 6 hours a week or someone that may be working 20, 24 hours during the summer months when they're on vacation?
That's a good point. I think we could make either one work. I guess right off the top of my head, I'd rather have someone with us all year, but
With school,
yeah, if that's not going to work, and we're really going to, the way we can get really good candidates is by tailoring it to be heavier, and so that's a good point. I mean, these are I guess to me, these are the kinds of things that we want to leave some flexibility with without, like Selectman Constantino said, going to town meeting and getting hammered, so.
where would we go to get these candidates? UNH, Keene, SNHU?
Plymouth State is where I feel like we have the most connections. That doesn't
Do
mean
they-
that's how it has to happen.
Do they have that program?
They do. They have they have graduate students in environmental science and policy, and that's been going for a while now. But what they seem to have more and more of every year is undergraduate students who are specifically going for planning.
So
And I
if you
think that-
contact them, you may get a better handle of what's going to work for those
Okay.
students, whether it's vacations in summer or year-round, 1 day a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, is it the president of Plymouth State that has a thing that he's trying to make sure that everybody, when they graduate, is working, has a job.
That's
When they
so
get
nice.
their diploma, they're already hired.
Yeah.
Or they're already into internships, and they're hiring people, or letting people work as part of their education.
Yeah, and by doing something like that, I imagine, I recall the chancellor of this university system speaking, maybe it was probably a decade ago now, about the importance of keeping our young people in the state. And by doing something like this, we are in fact contributing to that. To some
I'm just saying, he's paid to see it, and then
Yeah,
they go
right.
drivers on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Letting them having them come in here, realizing working in New Hampshire is pretty exciting. It's not, there's a lot going on in this building. You don't need to go to New York City or Boston to have an exciting career. So anyway, that's an aside, but I think, there's certainly some benefits to it.
Sounds like you're still rolling on this. You haven't been knocked out or anything, so.
What's that? Oh, right,
Yeah,
right, I know
yeah.
what you're saying, yeah. All right, I'll keep the,
Keep it rolling.
Okay.
And, I think everybody's agrees with that, and get back
Yep.
does that,
to where we're going.
Are we still on the budget?
we'll continue to evolve this.
Because I have questions still. Okay, land use education. I've got a 5-year average of 632, a 3-year average of 781. We're doing 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. Can't we cut that to 1,000?
We obviously could, based on the facts that you just laid forth. I think that there have been years.
I have
where-
another line I want to add to in a second also.
Okay, there have been years.
Line you just talked about.
Yeah, education, about halfway down.
There have been years where we've had to sort of, kind of manage things and maybe not do as much education as we would have because of that line, but, I can't argue with what you're reading on the paper there.
Do you have plans for increasing the educational opportunities?
I can't force people to go for, no, for myself, no. I go to 1 or 2, maybe conferences a year, and then much less expensive, $50 here, $75 there, day workshops. And I would intend to continue on that path. I think it's more for board members that I'd like to make sure we're not, missing opportunities because we don't have enough money budgeted. But it's, again, I send out the notices of the conference, and this is what we're coming in at, 632 and 781. So,
I
that's,
would think that, if you pulled it down, like Peter said, to the 1,000, and if for some reason it's you're gonna need a couple $100, well, if somebody really wants to go to a class it's important, I think we could find the
yeah,
the
you're right.
money somewhere in the next year, without having to
That's
make sure you have a
Mr.
buffer.
Pearson, is that a possibility? Okay.
Yeah, let's see where he's gonna put this money.
Go up about 2 lines to postage, I see. 2017 was 2,600, we got a 3-year average of 1611, a 5-year average 1611, a 3-year average of 1937. I'd go from 15 to 2,000, but I'd rather spend truer
Yeah.
and borrow from this line to cover that line.
We've recently introduced a cost-saving measure for postage.
Okay.
We're dropped per letter. We went from $6 and change to $4 and change,
Okay.
and I think that's going to pay. Help.
Yeah.
You've answered my question on that.
Are you doing certifieds online?
It's yes, right, or certified mail something. It seems to be working well, with few minor glitches.
Last one.
Almost getting sucked into the folding machine, for example.
Professional consultant diary, do we have anything in mind on that? Where I haven't seen anything in previous years and we've thrown a number?
Yes, I think, so there's, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think we have, we'd like to have in our ability to hire a environmental wetland scientist or environmental scientist to visit sites where we believe there are violations, but we don't have the stamp to, we don't have the expertise to be able to go out there and say, absolutely there's a violation right here. We've worked with an attorney to lay out a scenario. He sort of spelled out where he said, yeah, it's a good idea, every now and then you shouldn't go, at some point there's got to be somebody doing something wrong where you're actually going to crack down on this case. However, in his mind, you can collect, what should be done is their violation, the fees that you collect as a result of violation pays for the third-party reviewer and the attorney. And so ideally that money wouldn't go anywhere. However, there could be a time where we got to hire these people and it turns out we wind up not collecting. I just don't want to be in the position of not moving forward aggressively on a serious violation because we don't know how we're going to pay for it.
No, on the same note, excuse me, Peter.
No, go ahead, Joe.
The Conservation Commission also has money in their budget for soil scientists to
True.
hire just in
Okay.
case. So if they have this pool of money in case they need one, and just has a pool of money in case they need one, could we kind of combine that and have a, like pro bono attorney?
It's the selectmen's budget. So
I
it's not the
realize
land
that,
use budget
But what I'm
for
saying
the
is,
conservation. So what you're saying is correct. You only need one pool of money and all can draw from it.
so could we work more and see what the number is for the conservation, what they expect, and then find a soil scientist that's going to be there for us to do these things? Because I think, if everybody says, well, we'll put 2,500 just in case, and then conservation says 25, here's 5,000, and maybe actually we should just put one pool of 3,000.
Maybe, but it seems to me, they don't have the responsibility and authority to pursue these, potential violations. That's the only difference I see between the two, on this matter. That's the only difference I see between the two bodies. That I'm not saying no to what
Yeah.
you're saying. I
They
just,
have $1,000 set aside.
Is 1,000, so they have 1,000, and that's solely so that if they have to make a recommendation to DES, they have an informed decision. So, I know it's not, but DS usually listens to stuff like that, but I
Yeah.
think it should be more closer use between some of
The
that.
only thing I see about that is somebody gonna know where the money came from, because it's gonna come from this line, or it's gonna come from the conservation line. Just disclosure, who goes through these budgets? There are people that go through every line of the budget, and it just gives them the opportunity to see exactly where we ended up spending the money. If we had it all in one pot, whether conservation spent it or land use spent it, there would be no way of knowing, it just came out of that line. So that's the only observation I have. We're not gonna spend any more money.
No, it's Tim will tell you what.
Yeah, but I guess it would be
I'm
important to
throwing it
me
out there.
that we not have to, that we not have to go to another board to go forward with the budget.
You wouldn't.
Okay.
You just tap the
Yeah,
money from that line.
The Board of Selectmen could take, we also have monies for
Okay.
very similar. We could take all the monies and put it in one line, and then it would be for,
It's just for
We're all
clarity,
saying,
where
we
people can
think we're
see
used
where it comes
1,200, so we
from.
put 15 just to make sure we do it. And then you say, I'm not very, but 15 just in case of a put 2,000. So now we're already over by 750. And then the conservation does it, so we're over by 3,000.
Then you're back
There's a
into the
buffer.
situation where if, then you're back into the situation where if conservation uses a little bit of it, and land use uses a little bit of it, and the selectmen uses a little bit of it, it's really not clear to the taxpayers which department's actually using it. And for transparency, we put it under the department which it was being used, and that way the residents knew that under land use, they had $2,500 and they only used $1,000 or $1,300 or whatever. It was much more transparent to them.
That's why
That's why we had
don't
it
buy
under-
supplies all on one line. Everybody has their own supply line.
Well,
however, we start out with a budget that's fashioned very neatly in this style. And by June or July, or at least by August, money's gone from this line to this line, from this line to this line, and this page to this page, and that page to this page.
I disagree.
Oh no, really?
We don't.
And in our expenditure reports and whatnot, it's explained. It's explained somewhere, but maybe not right here. But we are currently. Oh, can we cover that? Well, yeah. We're going to
Where
take
does
that
that money
money
come
out of
from?
another line, and we're going to
Where
put
does
it in
that
this
money come
line.
from? Yeah.
And thank God we have Tim to figure out the puzzle. So
Maybe-
it's all redundant. It is the selectmen's budget, and I'm going to tell you, in 1999, that selectmen's budget was what, 10 lines?
Yeah.
10 lines. So
Just
if
about.
we take all the monies for
Just about.
what is this? Education, and we put it in one line, the townspeople know it's for education.
Yeah, but then you're gonna take town administration education,
Why
finance
not?
education.
It's education. Do you really think the townspeople care that, oh, we took education out of the administrative line to pay for the public works director and public works to go get educated at UNH?
May I make a
They just
suggestion?
want to know that education money is used for
A
education
few
money.
years back, they did care. That was one of the biggest subject matters here at a public hearing in a budget committee.
That had a little bit more complication than just taking monies out of the line.
Okay, so,
Tim was trying to explain something, and I've interrupted him again and again and again and again
yeah,
and again.
I just love budget season and budget debate season. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, thanks. What I was going to suggest is that maybe something like this would be suitable for a capital reserve fund, where there's a certain amount of money set aside, the selectmen can be agents, because the concern I have where you have multiple departments or boards and commissions accessing the same line, then you could conceivably get into a situation where both are spending money and all of a sudden there's no money left. Where you, well, in the example of a capital reserve fund where the selectmen are agents for that fund, then whichever project requires, the wetland scientist or professional consulting on something, we could have $10,000 set aside over a period of a few years, and then not have to have that in the operating budget. And then if things come up, you know, they can be paid for it. And keep it $1 in the line, you know, that sort of.
And then it's like the money for sidewalks. We never built sidewalks, but we kept spending it. The money for education that we've raised each year and haven't used would
So
stay in the
it's
fund.
just an idea, but,
That's actually a very good idea, because it is one line that we raise more monies than we ever use usually.
So we get some food for thought here.
I like that.
That's $390. Right?
yes, that was 390.
Anything else, Peter, you were on?
No, it was
No,
392.
No, 392 is.
I'm sorry, that was
Yeah.
390.
Yeah.
390 was it.
And, yeah, I got all my notes here. Anything else, Peter, you were,
No, that was it.
anybody else? Or Terry, are we taking away from the plan of your presentation?
Mike, no,
Okay.
no, that, you guys already did that.
This was
half an
your,
hour.
this was your show.
I'd like to hear about the salary planning board,
Yeah, let's go down to the next
Oh,
one.
yeah, okay,
please.
just, I think the note says it all, and, you know, adding alternates. Adding, hopefully, hopeful alternates that we don't have right now.
The planning board has paid alternates in the past
Good.
7 years.
We don't pay all 7 members of the planning board stipend.
Oh, good point.
Or the extra
Either
alternate.
that or I've been missing out for a while.
And I'm per alternate, so does that kick me into the $400 category?
No,
I'm an alternate.
No, you're not.
you're the ex officio alternate. Nice try, though.
So, yeah, the hope is to build up our boards so they both have, you know, meaning both zoning board and planning board, so they have alternates.
Is there a criteria for that? I'm an alternate, but I only went to 2 meetings. Do I get the same as the one who went to 10
In
meetings?
my mind, that's up to you guys.
No, this-
I just
because
wondered if we had one now.
your alternate position only replaces the ex officio.
No, I meant alternates in general. I'm out of that conversation. That was a joke, and we've moved on
Oh,
from
The
that.
practice has been
I
that.
Tim,
gotta
you can-
catch up.
2 minutes, can tell you that answer.
Yeah, the practice has been, and this has just been what's happened in the past, but the chair of each board and commission, they would either bring it up at the meetings, or they would submit for payment for their board and commission members. And in the past, there have been some boards that have listed the number of meetings that people have attended, and actually prorated some of the stipend.
There's no one
Yes,
size
there is
fits
an
all.
RSA.
The Conservation Commission, presently, that's the way they do it.
That's
If you
correct.
attend,
Conservation
I think, out of 12 meetings, if you attend 10 meetings, you're eligible for all of it. If you attend, out of 12 meetings, if you attend 6, you're eligible for 50%, I think. And then, at some point, if you attended 1 or 2 meetings, you don't get anything.
You shouldn't actually be serving on the board anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Should be removed.
But there is a plan for that. Whatever it is, it seems to work well.
Right, and, but different boards have done different ways, so.
So maybe we should establish,
A criteria.
and I
So-
like the Conservation Commission.
You've got ZBA who meets how often?
Once a month.
Once a month,
What?
if there are
If there's
cases.
cases.
Right.
Planning board meets at least twice a month. It's like, why are the stipends the same?
Hmm.
You know, have a range. If you're meeting 12 to 18 times a month, it's this amount. If you're over 18, it's this amount. Because planning board seems to get the lion's share of meetings.
Potentially.
I mean, the number of hours planning board puts in
Yeah.
compared to zoning board is
Well, that,
very significant, yeah.
But we're not paying them to do a job. It is a stipend.
Yeah, sure.
It's only designed to cover fuel,
Oh.
you know.
and if you're on
It's
planning
not-
board, you have to go to twice as many meetings, so that's twice the fuel, Catherine.
I can tell you right now that I'll bet you our furthest planning board member, if you figure the mileage for all those meetings, it comes to far less than $400 a month.
Year.
Yeah.
Because we're not paying people for time.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to take a look at
But you
that.
do have a point.
Okay.
The two.
I mean, that sounds like something we're all gonna look at, right? Are you saying?
I think all boards should take a look at that. Pat, you think so?
I like the basic format
The planning
that John
board
described with
should
the
be a
Conservation
basic
Commission.
format.
The planning board
But
does have
Peter
more
does make an
expenses.
interesting
They have
point.
to wash the pies out of their laundry.
Tomatoes.
Budget committee is meeting every week.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
It is, it's a very tough job.
You're saying take a look at the amount that we pay for
It's
stipend?
interesting.
Well, the method for alternates.
Well, and also the payment, if you're meeting twice as many as another board, why should you both be paid the same? You've got
It's
like
interesting.
budget and planning that do a lion's share.
It's not pay.
Well, it's a stipend, but
Typical
if
across
if
the
it's
board,
considering to
it's-
cover some of your gas and all, I'm still doing twice the gas.
Well, the-
As a selectman, I receive a stipend.
Mm-hmm.
And as the outside representative to numerous boards and stuff, I go a lot of places and run up gas and time and whatever, and I still just get the same stipend.
But you volunteered,
Maybe
Joe.
somebody,
I'm trying to promote more.
But as a selectman, we have access to the town car.
we do, I
The
used it
committee mem-
yesterday.
Yeah, committee members don't.
That's true too.
I thought that was
Lovely Crown Vic.
I like the town car.
Well, and I'm sure there's probably a formula too that could work. I think if town administrator and I spent some time looking at it, either by a per meeting basis. I think we're about the only town that I'm aware of that has stipends for board and committee members.
other ones don't.
That's correct. Not that I'm aware of.
That's.
Can we, Can you explain about the code enforcement officer salary?
Did you want to go into public?
Yeah, I think the question here,
The code enforcement is simply based off of hours and projected hours and his rate.
That position was given a merit raise, correct?
yeah.
That's correct.
Is there a suggestion that that be increased beyond the merit raise that was given?
Gary? Did you want a fuller discussion on this?
Well, I think I want to talk about personnel at some point. So maybe it makes sense. I think if they're asking just about this 2.4%, I think that's probably quickly.
I think Catherine's looking over here. Yeah.
Well, I'm just a little confused because,
Well, if you keep in mind also my discussion last week on the issue of the merit budget transfers.
that's my confusion. That's what I thought I was looking at.
Right,
But
so-
then when I read this, it seems to imply that another increase on top of the merit.
Potentially, a merit raise. Merit raise is not
Okay,
on
so
I
that.
think
that's what
that-
I'm reading.
We did not,
Are we hedging around something we want to discuss in
Yes.
non-public?
I'm thinking, I would like to request
It's
If
a
we're
personnel.
talking
non-
about just merit raises and whatnot on salaries, it's not non-public. But if there's more to the story
It's
that has
specific
to
to
do
the
with
person, I think that it
personnel
But I
needs to
think there's not more to the story on this.
In your budget document, as I said last week, I haven't prepared for you yet the merit budget transfers. So what that does is that takes the budgeted amount in the merit line and allocates it to all the individual salary lines,
Mhm.
so that if you were to look at that, you would see
Huh?
zero. So it essentially would not look like an increase just based on that. The number
Exactly.
of hours, however,
But this
we did.
dialogue seemingly implies that an increase to that salary is being requested beyond the merit that was given in July.
Yeah, I don't think that's exactly what.
And that's what I'm asking.
I think he's saying it's 25 work week.
Because it's not truly a budget increase, it was a merit increase.
I think we'll
correct.
Catherine? There was a budget increase allocated, not necessarily all merit increases were given out to
I know this.
individuals. So now we put it into a wage adjustment.
That was my question. Maybe we should go into non-public, because we seem to be running around,
I don't think that they relate, but there's no harm in,
Poll
I mean,
that-
we might as well, 'cause, yeah.
because I'm not getting it.
Now, it is, there's two different, it simply what you're looking at on the budget sheet is, as I described it, it is the absence of the merit budget transfers. Otherwise,
Then what is this language implying?
So she's saying the sentence that says budget increase based upon a 25-hour.
so if you deleted the word increase and just said budget is based upon, so the budgeted figure that's there for salary is based on the number of hours times the rate.
So I'm wondering, why is this even here?
Right.
Okay, so maybe now is the time to go.
Why is that even there?
All right, if we could go into the.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we go into non-public as per RSA 91A:3 personnel.
What about personnel? What specifically are we discussing about personnel?
The,
Promotion or compensation, right? Public-
Promotion or compensation?
We're promoting? Or is
Or
it
Compensation.
Okay, I want to be clear.
Junction, what's your function?
I'm sticking.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second.
Non-public.
Second.
Excuse me.
And we have a second. We have a roll call vote, starting with Constantino. Constantino?
Yes.
Fog, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Fog, yes.
Bug.
Jessamine, yes.
And Scanlon, yes.
You didn't say you were going alphabetical, I thought you were going down the table.
We'll be back.
You're supposed to go.
We are red. Red is on.
You and then seconded.
yeah, I've got 4 reports that these are simply to demonstrate some of the capacities of the iWork system to generate reports. It's incredibly simple to go in and generate a report. These columns that I chose, somewhat arbitrary, just, I went in, I'll put contract name, but this isn't to serve some, study that we're doing. This was just, again, for me to show some of the capacity of what I can do. So take a look at these, and please.
Are the permit reports actual?
Are they what?
Actual.
They are. Yeah, that's real. That's not. And what I will say is some of what I'm handing out, you'll see it will say like page 1, there'll be like 19 pages. I only printed some of the pages because I didn't want to burn through tons of paper, which is, I think, the contract report is actually, that's just, we're creating a list of contractors, nothing special. However, I think, I think we have a list of, over 30 contractors already in there. So some of the benefits of the system are you're grabbing these names. Again, just these are just some examples. But I can answer questions. I can speak to you guys individually anytime, or next time I come, we can talk more about this. But again, my overall impression is I'm very pleased with the system. I'm very pleased with the way Al and Sheena have adopted it.
This is doing all you expected to do. There were some
It's
glitches in the
it's
beginning,
capable of doing everything we've expected to do. I wouldn't say we're at 100%.
No, but it's what you.
Oh yeah, that's actually more than what I thought.
Good.
I mean, yeah, Sheena's able to go in, and any of us can. We can go in and modify drop-down menus, or anything we can't do on our own. We can call iWorks at no charge. They'll address right away. It's really got a lot more capacity than I actually thought it did at the beginning. Obviously, at the beginning, we were very excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
That
I'm not
was,
Thank you so much, Darren.
Very
This makes
informative.
a lot of sense. I like this.
Thank you.
Report, the reports generated by the site inspections, is that part of this, or am I just?
No, I didn't sit hand.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, but the Al recently, somebody asked him for an inspection report, and he just went in, a couple hits of the button, and he had a very professional looking.
I would like to see,
Okay.
but I'll come in and talk to you, and you
Okay.
can show me a couple of.
Okay.
Here, Tim.
You should have started with this.
is
Bye.
Tim gone for the night?
Hey, you're doing IT,
Would you?
finance, budget?
He said he's gonna be next week.
Not
He
today.
was good.
Okay,
And
I need to leave.
Run,
okay.
that's the only
run.
one.
You get a stay.
Keep going, don't
The
turn
governor's
back.
giving you a stay.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
No, this is good, Daria. You know,
This is
and
what
like
I've
I
been
said a
looking
couple
for.
months ago, software's not worth anything unless you have data in it.
Yeah.
You've been doing that.
Yeah, no, and this
I
is all
appreciate that.
Sheena and Al. I mean, again, I probably typed in not 1% of that data. It's all them. So, yeah. Good. So anyway, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Terry.
Night, Dari.
Good night.
Okay, oh yeah, that's right. I got it in the right direction here while we're going. So, finance, IT, land use, we're all set. We're gonna go right along with town administrator.
Okay.
Do we have a,
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
it's in there somewhere.
You also have the report from the PD and the Public Works Department. And you all, in your packet to sign things is the warrant, the tax warrant. So if you haven't had an opportunity to sign it, if you would be sure to do that. Did you get a chance?
No, it hasn't
Joe?
gotten down this far.
Could you hand Catherine the tax warrant there?
Is,
Yep.
is John
And
good
the-
with it?
Right. What are you looking for?
Um,
Tax warrant? It's in the,
Yeah.
It's in the orange file.
So
I don't see it. Oh, it's here?
it's in the orange packet. So you have my weekly update. We had our first health benefit education session at the DPW, and most of the DPW folks were there. It went very well. We've got one more to go next week, next Tuesday at 9 o'clock at the police department. And anyone who doesn't make any one of those sessions and needs information, I will be available to go through that with them. I mentioned to you last week, open enrollment will begin on November 14th.
how long does it go for?
December 14th,
December 14th.
so approximately a month. The Trail Advisory Committee has been created, I would say tentatively. We have Iris Ayano, who represents the WRTA. We have Selectman Constantino representing the Select Board, Alyssa Norton as a trail user, Chief Cormier or designee for the PD, and Chuck Mitchell from the Conservation Commission. So now that we have these folks who've agreed to serve, I'll work on scheduling a meeting where they'll fill out the paperwork and you will all, excuse me, approve them to serve on that committee. Last Friday, I did a tour with Kevin, our DPW director. We visited the True Green accident site, the island, and talked about the lighting. We went to 13 Andrews Road to look at the issues over there, Academy Street, and the retaining wall, and then the Tuscan Hill property. This week I met with, as a follow-up to all those issues, individually, I met with Mr. Cropsey to talk about what was happening with the site, and I think I expressed to you all in an email, I was very concerned about the liability, the exposure to the town, and I talked to Primex, and I talked to Mr. Cropsey, and Kevin got an estimate for chain link fence, and I asked him to get that up, and he got it up today. Mr. Cropsey gave the approval. He did talk to the DOT to make sure. I think somebody had a concern about it being interfering with road clearing.
Is it up against the?
concrete or the,
It's where it keeps people off the sidewalk, because that's actually giving way on the sidewalk side.
Yeah.
So it's approximately $1,400, and I intend to go after True
Green for
Green for that.
is it construction style where it has the legs sitting on the ground, or is it post?
Post in the ground. It's about 200 feet, 6 feet high.
Oh, $1,500? That's great.
So it has
It's
to,
reusable.
And yes, and the point is when they are done with it, it can be reused, and DPW has a use for it.
so we're actually blocking the sidewalk? so
Yes.
that- Okay.
Because it's not safe.
6
It's
foot,
closed anyway.
6 foot, 8 foot?
6 foot.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
Concertina wire?
If we're going to put up this fence, are we gonna put signs on it to warn people not to climb over it?
I just want to be clear that the fence is up.
Yep.
It went up today.
Are we gonna put signs on it that
What-
keeps people away?
And we can certainly do that. Again, my concern when I looked at it was the liability to the town. Because if somebody went out, especially with the Christmas parade coming up,
I agree.
Yeah, that
We have
other
a-
fencing, if we got one snow plow, would have blown it.
We have people that fish along
Snow,
there, and I've watched
they
them
might
climb
climb.
over what we've got, and I wouldn't put it past them to try to climb over that.
I have a feeling. it's
well,
gonna
at
be
least
difficult.
we've,
So if we put signs on it that
Yes.
warns them,
and we certainly can do that.
Do we know anywhere where the True Green litigation is or anything?
I know that Mr. Cropsey's been working with the True Green folks. I mentioned I met with Mr. Cropsey this last week. He sent me several different surveys. We're still trying to figure out who owns the wall. In the next week or so, I intend to set up a meeting with DOT, DES, take Mr. Cropsey down there and myself and possibly a couple other folks and try to get this thing straightened out and get moving on the repair.
Good.
Tuscan Hill property, we had a meeting today with Primex and Annette Sarno to look at the property. And Primex initially told me today that part of the wall that was just created destruction because of the snow plowing, that would be covered. He's going to work on that number and get back to me on that. Mrs. Sarno made it fairly clear that the wall needs to be fixed if we're going to renew the parking agreement.
Define fixed, please, because if we're going back to all the stones being the same, it'll never happen. So, it's what her definition of fixed is.
Her definition of fixed is, and I went out and looked at the site, the one part of the wall is tipping in, and we're only talking, 2 or 3 block height, but it's tipping in, and along the curved edge, or not the straight edge, it's a different block that was used. And she wants the same color block that was used.
It won't happen.
won't happen.
It's
We can't get it.
even the same batch can get different coloration. It's like, look at a brick building.
They tried to get the same color, they can't.
That was our problem. No, we tried to fix it.
And the problem with the leaning, that's because it's not below frost, so we can level it this year, and next year's frost movement, it may tip this way or the other. So is it, she gonna come at us every year when the frost moves it?
The issue was really caused by the way they built it to begin with, and then how the water drained into it that caused that to lean, not the plows or anything like that. It's actually one brick has settled into the ground.
The adjustment from Primex would identify those things, wouldn't they?
Yes. He, as I say, spent a lot of time out there today. He'll come back with his recommendation, but initially said there was a piece of the wall that he could see would be covered under our insurance, not all of it, but a piece of it.
Let's see what their report says, because they might get into a lot of the details on that, why they wouldn't want to do it.
And what they may pay may end up being enough for us to satisfy the sound.
So we just have to wait and see for the report.
But I guess I just wanted you to know that I'm on top of it, I'm
Thanks.
pushing it, and I'm trying to get it resolved.
That's a tough one.
The last time we met, you asked me to put together an RFP for Academy Street. I did that. It's in your packet. I assume you're going to want to take a look at that. I don't know if you want to look at it tonight or take it and read it and come back. But if we want bids, I put dates on there that obviously will change because it will be delayed a week.
Oh, I like it.
It was at the back of my report.
You need one, Joe? Look at one.
Yeah, apparently. Thank you very much. No, I've got this. I haven't been able to find it in this file, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
I say go with it.
I haven't read it yet.
There it is right there.
Yeah.
So many trees died for this.
So would you like me to take you through it, or would you like to read it on your own?
Can we bring it up next week? Take a look at it and read it? Oh, that cuts into time though, never mind.
It would delay it a week, but
Peter and I are okay with it.
This end of the board's good.
Holding up this end.
Read it earlier today.
I think it's well written.
Report?
I think it's very well written.
It's good.
Yeah, well,
Get her done.
got me.
thank you. Follow-up, just some follow-up from last week. Pat, you asked about the senior center floors, the contractor, where they were at. I have placed a call, waiting to hear back on that.
It'll
Jake?
be done next week.
What's that?
It's gonna be done next week. That's
Before
what
snow
we keep hearing.
flies, right.
This isn't next week.
What is the concern with the floor again, Pat?
The joist, there's no joist underneath in
In
the
the kitchen,
floors.
right? Yeah.
Right, and it goes like this, so
Yeah.
we had contracted, we actually bid it and
Awarded it.
awarded it to Mr. Belanger, the man that did
Mhm.
all this. And there was apparently an accident or something that delayed the process.
I thought it had been done already.
No, it hasn't. So he's gonna go underneath and put Joyce jacket up and level the
Mhm.
kitchen, so then we can go out and get a grant for a new floor in the kitchen. However, we can't do that. The doors are not closing and they're not opening. If a wheelchair wanted to go into the kitchen, they couldn't because the door won't fully open. A little over 2,000, almost 3, just for that work.
I mean, I realize we awarded it, but that's, I think it's time to call somebody else.
Well, he said he's really close, so let's just see where he's
He's
going.
been saying that since the week we awarded it to him. We can't. It's gonna be snow.
We need to get it done.
Yeah.
Who are you gonna have
Real
to do
soon.
it, though? That problem is who you gonna have to do it.
You doing Saturday, Joe?
I've been under there, so.
I'll go into
That
the
would be the
with
first
Jack, I'll
time.
get it done.
Let me call him again tomorrow, see if I can get him and leave a little bit more of an urgency to the message and see if I can get him to respond.
Want to do it?
Yes,
Is it something that you really don't want to get involved in?
right,
You're hesitant?
okay. JP Electric, Catherine, you asked me to follow up on that, getting an update on the bid. I've called twice now, we'll call again. Stonehenge for the repointing of the bricks at Town Hall, have called 3 or 4 times now, but I'm not too worried about not getting a response because, as I mentioned to you earlier, I would like to go after some grant funding for the repointing, and that wouldn't happen
I know
until.
where he's working in Guilford.
And from what they've both said, there's no immediate danger,
Right,
which would be the big concern.
right.
Doubled and tripled fold.
I've been here 10 years, we've been talking about it, so. What's
Next-
another year?
Next week, Kevin and I will we're getting together to work on a trench ordinance.
Good.
Um,
don't
I wanna
see
go back
fireworks
to-
on here, though.
I want to go back to 13 Andrews Road for a minute. I didn't quite finish up on that. So Kevin and I went out there and took a look at that. And as we were kind of looking at the space, we noticed that there might be a potential opportunity for us to put snow in a certain area of a company over there. So I've reached out to my contact there and want to see if we can make some arrangements to help the DPW put the snow in some other places.
They use that for car parking at the bus stop.
What's that?
You'll get a car or two that'll park in that area in the bus runs.
The triangle.
Waiting for children.
Yeah, right as you
Yep.
go into 3M to the left
Yep.
there, that triangular piece there, they park there, and that's where the students also wait for the bus.
So it's probably not a good idea.
You'll have limited storage there, I think, is all.
Well, I'll follow up and see what they
Talk to
say.
them, we can
But
say.
that field where we took the trees down
Mhm.
would be ideal.
I sent all of you a copy of the county budget as a follow-up to your request, and I just wanted to get back to you. Would you like to have at least one commissioner? It sounds like at least one commissioner is willing to come and meet with the board, or are you good with what you saw with the budget information I sent?
Which commission?
The county, the Belknap, the delegation, or the county commissioners.
But which commissioner is willing to come?
Glenn Waring, I think.
Oh,
When did you send that?
I sent that right after the board meeting last week in an email.
I have not had a chance to look at it, honestly. I've had a really rough week, so I have not gone through it. But it would be,
I'd like to have them come.
I'd really like to have him come, and then we can,
I've talked with those commissioners, it's like talking to a wall. I have had no luck talking to them about anything substantial. They don't know, they're not going to tell me, they've got a reason. They can't explain it to me, but that's just me. So sounds like a waste of time, but
So if we have one come to speak to us, do we want to put it out there in case there's public out there?
absolutely.
Or residents that might have questions for it as well? And how would we put it out there? My understanding is people tell me there's some kind of Facebook that involves both.
invite our representatives.
Ooh, that's a good one. But there's a Facebook thing that involves both
Yeah.
towns?
There is. There is.
Oh, here you go. I mean, let's really put it out there.
Everywhere.
Okay.
Now that elections are over, maybe they'll show up.
Well, we used to get them to come. Like,
We used to
they
get
came
Dennis
on-
to come.
They came on their own.
Dennis.
Oh, I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about
Oh, the county commissioners used to come all the time, once a year,
all on their own. We
All on
didn't
their
even
own.
ask them. Very nice.
until the new ones were in place.
I'm
John
sure.
Thomas used to come all the time.
I'm sure you probably know that the tax bills are due to go out next week.
We just signed
The
them.
warrant
Yeah.
signed.
One of the things I'd like to propose for the future is a newsletter from the town that goes out with the tax bills.
That's very nice.
I did talk with Cindy about it, and we can put a one-page front and back, but to do that, you have to authorize it. It has to be authorized by the selectmen.
What do you propose to go in it?
So I'm glad you asked. I talked to Tim a little bit about it. I thought it would be nice for this first one, if it was very simple, And we did something like, since it's going out, this is the first one and it's going out with the tax bill, that Tim could explain to people how the tax rate, I know it's down on the website, but have him have a little discussion about that. I thought possibly we could have a listing of important dates coming up, when town meeting is, when the Christmas parade, those types of things. A very light first newsletter. Talk about the 150th and the things that are being planned for that. Possibly first impressions, what they're doing. And then I thought it would also be nice if we highlighted a employee. And I was thinking specifically Kevin, because he's the new DPW director. And personally, I think he's been doing a great job. Everything I ask him to do, he's very responsive. I think he's been doing a great job.
They were great with the election setup.
Well, we have 2 new employees.
I was going to say, would it be possible to get a short blurb about the new town administrator? There's a lot of people who are interested in the fact that we have a new town administrator.
Okay.
You didn't say yes.
So the problem is, or the challenge is, because I'm sure you'd like to see this before it goes, I'm guessing you'd want to see it. So it's going to have to be a
Yes.
very good or very quick turnaround, because if the tax bills are going out next week, midweek, it means I would need to put something together essentially by the weekend so it's ready. Monday's a holiday, so it's ready for Tuesday.
I personally don't need to see it. It's a newsletter. It's
I'm sure
informational.
Whatever you come up with, I have no changes, but I would still, when you
Like
get
to
it
see
done,
it.
if you'd email it so that I could read it, that would be great. I'm not going to change what you say.
Yep, I think I like the tone of it, all upbeat.
Get it going.
A little sugar on the tax belt.
Oh yeah, make sure he emphasizes our rate versus all the others.
I trust Amy.
Okay. So, per the RSA, the select board does need to authorize this.
I make a motion to authorize a newsletter be sent out with the tax bills.
Second.
We have a motion.
Aye.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
All right, great, thank you. And then, from last week, there were several questions, and I don't know if Kevin addressed them all in his, I didn't get a chance to read his report. But you had asked about street signs, if they were the new taller letters, and if they were retro-reflective. He said that, he advised me that those signs had already been purchased over the summer and had been installed, and they're working on updating their list of signs. So that's where he's at with that.
But you didn't answer the question yet. They may have been ordered and all, but were they 6-inch or 4-inch?
They were ordered before him.
I understand
Yes.
that. We've known
Yes.
since before him that they
So either
needed to
the
be
6-inch
fixed.
or the
So,
4-inch, do we
The
need to
correct
reorder
signs
them?
ordered.
well, just wait or whatever.
Do we need to reorder them?
Well,
Is that
as
what
I
you're
understand it, there isn't any more money in the budget for that.
No, I know, but we have a certain, the RSA says we have a certain year, and I think it's 2021, that we have to have all the 6-inch retro-reflectives down on in the streets. So we probably would need to work towards reordering them and putting them in the budget.
So what he's doing is replacing signs with new signs that were purchased, not by him.
Right.
And we haven't got a plan yet in place to replace those new signs that somebody else ordered with the new retro-reflective, as Pat was saying, that it is required.
I didn't hear that they weren't ordered. Just saying he didn't order them and that they put them up, but what size are they?
That's all I was
Right.
asking. I don't care who ordered.
Maybe it's
whatever.
already done properly.
I think probably what we have in order is probably a
My
statement stating that-
impression was that they were correct, they were done, and they were put up. But let me just check.
That's,
with
yeah,
Kevin.
If they
one more
aren't, then
time.
they need to be because it is an RSA.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's not a question, but a statement like,
Yeah,
What's
so
the
I
appropriate
asked the question with the details, were they 6-inch? Were they retro-reflective? And the answer back was, and that was a little sloppy on my part then, I guess, because the answer back was, they were ordered and they've been put up. So,
So that sounds like a.
We shouldn't answer your
Yeah.
question technically.
right.
So
And I-
as long
and I-
as they comply with the new.
So let me just
rules
follow
and
up with that.
regulations.
Follow up, find out when we need to have it done, and then he may want to look at his budget for next year to start planning over the next, if it's 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
how many we should be doing a year.
He has, Peter, you asked the question about backup cameras.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay, so you know that he's ordered them, he's on
Yep.
top of that. The ball field, what he explained to me, and I think it's in his report too, that the pipe insulation had been ripped off. And so that's what he was doing. It really wasn't a winterizing, but really making
Right.
sure that everything was fine. So maybe he used the wrong
And there's a
word.
heater going.
Right,
can
There was a
I ask one question?
Yes.
What type of heat are we running in the shed there?
Little ceramic heater.
So we're heating a shed for?
No,
No.
it's a box area around the
Very
pump.
small.
Oh, okay.
We boxed it off, so it's,
So that's all in place.
Would you
So,
also ask him
excuse
if
my
they've done their, I believe the Public Works does the spring and fall cleanup of 132.
you may want to check that. That had been in the landscape.
I asked Belknap and they said no.
Well, of course, they'll come back and tell you we'll do it for this amount.
Well, I
It's just
know.
like the other thing you sent out. It's, I
Well,
believe it
that's
was in it.
I don't,
It's the 132 ball field?
yeah.
It was
This-
with the previous landscapers, Catherine.
Right, but Public Works mows it.
I have a question, so we don't charge anything to the school to use that?
No.
They, usually the high school, they have a bunch of the seniors that do rake leaves and stuff like that. Perhaps maybe the high school would volunteer to do a fall cleanup on the ball field that they get to use for free.
Are they still using that field?
Mm-hmm.
Does the high school still help out, or is it just Tilton School? I don't know, I think Ricky.
Anyway, whatever it takes to get done, but.
Okay.
He was talking about high school.
okay. Great, that's it for my report. I've been here 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 6 weeks.
Time flies, huh?
Really?
I did want to talk to you about my goals and kind of my observations, and to do that, I'd like to go into non-public.
She's gonna fire us.
I'm going to make a motion that we go into non-public as per RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2.
Do you wanna do that before you do selectmen's reports, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's going to be A, dismissal, promotion, compensation, public employee, or the discipline of such employee, or the investigation charge against him. Would that be one, unless the employee's affected, has the right name, and
Charges
Isn't it
against
more-
us.
so that's it. Roll call vote, starting with C.
Is that the right?
Constantino, yes.
Dawson.
I'm not sure. Yes, I guess.
Jessamine-
I'm thinking
Jessamine,
no.
yes.
Jessamine, Scanlon, yes. All in favor.
Again.
We are now red is on. I did make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel issues. Permanent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to seal the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
I would like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the previous non-public session as they pertain to personnel issues as well, permanently.
Second.
Just dawns on me I didn't do it.
No, nobody did it.
Good catch.
Okay,
Aye.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I just have an issue with this hawkers and peddlers license. It's not a selectmen's report,
Just one?
just one.
Okay, have at it.
So it requires an original notarized authorization from landowner, must accompany this application. This is not notarized, but the business that owns the property, I'm wondering if we could make an exception to that officially for this one, because,
For what reason? Why would we make an exception?
well, the timing maybe. I didn't want to delay it. And these people have been coming to this exact
No,
same
I know,
site year after year.
Yeah.
And I would just say, I looked through that and saw that that was deficient, so I went back and looked at their previous application, and it was the same. There was no
Yeah.
notary.
If it
Notarized.
requires
Which
an
site year
exception.
after year, Catherine? Because hadn't they been at the
Right,
auto
but it-
serve for years, and now they've, because it's a car dealership, they've had to move?
It's going to be in the same location.
Still there?
Yeah, still there.
It's under an auto serve heading.
Yeah,
But my point was,
Right.
last year's was the same. There was no.
right. And so even though we've made that mistake and missed it, we should try not to.
Future. Okay.
But I'm just saying, I just wanted everybody to make,
Keep
To
your
know.
eyes peeled for stuff
to
like
know.
this.
Oh, I was here last year and missed it. Requires your signature. Thank you, John.
Weak moment.
And what's,
Yeah, stuff.
I have a couple things.
Joe? I think we got that last.
Okay. Yesterday, I went to the Northeast Resource Recovery Association annual meeting with Kevin, and it was a good networking opportunity for Kevin. He hooked into several public works departments, including ones who have heavy-duty transfer stations, and so he had a chance to ask about transfer stations and the regulations concerning transfer stations. The guest speaker was about composting yard and food waste and the state of the landfills in New Hampshire and New England and the potential for filling them up and what do we do with our trash at that point. And I had the opportunity to spend a number of hours with Kevin and had a very good conversation. We talked about the potential for a garbage truck. If we had our own garbage truck, what does that look like? And he actually had lots of good ideas. So turns out he was a garbage truck guy for a lot of years, worked for Waste Management, and he knows about garbage trucks and maintaining garbage trucks, driving garbage trucks, and so, and that stuff, we'll talk about that again, I'm sure. The downtown committee met the other day. We talked about, the downtown committee, we're talking about what is our name. We started out as first impressions, and we're calling ourselves like the downtown committee or whatever, and what are we trying to accomplish? What's our goal? And I think we had a general consensus to start referring to ourselves as the Greater Tilton Economic Development Council. Economic development, not just Main Street economic development. We had a Main Street program and it petered out and died out, and it seemed like the individuals here thought that might have something to do with, we had plenty of enthusiasm downtown, but not so much maybe up in Winnisquam or, up School Street or, that kind of thing. Including the word greater in it kind of left the door open for having everybody's, involved in this. But we were talking about finalizing that next week. Is there any input that the board would like to?
You are officially the First Impressions Committee, because that is what the Board of Selectmen created and
That's
signed.
correct, but
So-
that doesn't mean that the Board of Selectmen can't change it, and that's why I'm
So
discussing
new
it today.
applications would have to be filled out, so that where I'm going to is if you intend to change it, I would suggest you bring those applications with you.
Can I get those applications? I don't have to have them right this second, but to get them so that we can have them looked at next week and
Yeah, have
make the
them all filled
proper
out.
applications and
It'll
fill them
keep
out.
you from delaying.
And whatever. There was talk about the potential for becoming a 501c3 nonprofit entity. The main thrust of that, I don't necessarily understand why that would work so much. It was put forward by Mr. Gaudet in order to maximize our
Then you would,
potential for grants and things like that. Then just throwing that out there.
you would be walking away from the umbrella of the town.
And I don't know as we would want to do
You'd
that
be
at all.
completely on your own.
Yeah, I don't know as that, but I just
Well,
letting you know.
nobody
that-
would be indemnified.
No, I get that. I'm
Okay.
gonna throw that. I didn't say a word then. I wanted to bring that back
Yeah.
here. If it comes up again, then I would know what to tell them. Like if you want to break away, that's a whole thing. You know, and explain the ramifications of that. Our action items were the banners. There's talk and enthusiasm for placing banners, especially in the downtown area that comprises the historic district, to play up on the nature of historic downtown Tilton. There's also in the 150th committee a proposal for banners potentially to go from one end of town to the other every so often, 150, and there's sponsorship opportunities and whatever. So, and Jeannie's on both as well. She was there the other day at the downtown one. So we're trying to coordinate that so we can get some kind of a proposal. What does it cost? What does that look like? The hangers are expensive as the banners. So we've got people working on that. When we actually have a proposal, we would bring it before the Board of Selectmen and say, okay, this, and who do we talk to about the polls? And, there's so many things.
Yeah.
There's so many things. The river. We talked about brush cutting, removal of debris. We've run late in the year. It's cold. It seems like it rains every other day. And so, except for some spot work or whatever, which I would like to discuss with you, getting a coordinated effort, bringing the people down, Kylie Yam up at the Tilton School runs a class that's basically river biology. And she was very excited about being part of this effort. I still haven't been able to get in touch with this person to coordinate it. And Scott Haskins and I have had numerous conversations because we're both very interested in the river and, shining a light on the river for both towns because they're going through an economic development initiative right now as well. We're thinking spring, March, April, depending, on the river comes down a little bit from the snow melt or what have you. But that's basically our river program. And the rest of it was chalk art. Beginning on Monday, the initiative that we approved will start to take place, and apparently there's a lot of enthusiasm. I don't know if that'll translate to chalk art, but there's a lot of enthusiasm, and Bryant Lawrence Hardware, for those of you who are interested in putting chalk art down on Main Street, beginning on Monday, the chalk is available at Bryant Lawrence Hardware. So you might go in there and talk to Bill to get your chalk. And the last thing was, I got two more things. One was the Christmas lights. Now, in the past, in the current, the Parks Department puts lights in the trees, right, up and down Main Street. Who does that?
Public Works.
Yeah, but who sponsors that? Just the town?
Mhm.
It's not. I thought it was all this time. I thought it was the Parks Department specifically, but
Back in
Main
the
Street's
day,
not
it
a park.
was.
okay.
We put up solar lights one year.
Yeah, I know that. That's why I thought it was.
Public Works took over.
Okay, well, There was enthusiasm for coming up with, I don't know what the word is, more grandiose lights, colored lights, decorating the trees more extensively downtown with, colored lights or flashing lights.
You're only
Electricity
limited
first.
to solar.
No, I understand it. I understand that. They seem to have some expertise in this area. I'm just the messenger here. And I told them they had to get in touch with the Parks Department. That's not necessarily true. So I will call those people and have them get in touch with...
What are these people? Is this first impressions or?
These are from First Impressions.
This trees on Main Street are the Board of Selectmen's trees.
I understand that.
So they would like
Well,
to
I understand
decorate the trees more extensively?
They would like to
than-
help with the trees, provide some of the lights or whatever. They had a connection for Christmas lights and just helping out with the Christmas lighting scheme downtown.
As long as they meet the criteria of solar and,
Well, they would have to because there's no electric at the
Right.
trees. I mean, there's certain things that just can't change.
and grandiose is right up my alley.
Perhaps more grandiose. I like the Christmas lights. I've always been about decorating the island and decorating the bridge, and I'll bring that proposal another time. But in any case, I will have them get in touch with the town administrator and see how we can coordinate, if at all.
Yep,
Does the board agree?
Okay,
I agree.
Yeah, okay. Lastly, next Wednesday, 6 p.m. at the Highland Mountain Bike Park, Northfield is having an economic development council meeting for their economic development initiative. Everyone is invited. Come on up. And it's open to the public. Helps me. Wednesday at the Highland Mountain Bike Park,
at what time?
6 p.m.
At Highlands Mountain?
Highland Mountain Bike Park, that's correct. So, see, there we go. We're advertising Northfield initiatives. Because I do believe that we have economic development in common. So I'm going to go up there anyway and listen to what they have to say, do a little glad handing and
So have
stuff.
all
And
5 selectmen show up.
that would be great to just
Is
sit
there a
there.
budget next Wednesday, John?
Yes.
I already have
Every
a 6
week.
o'clock next Wednesday and a 3:45.
That takes care of me.
I'll go through, I had a budget meeting, we were talking about that, I'll tell them what I did. So last night was budget meeting, you'll have to read the minutes when they get up there.
Why weren't they filmed? I asked if the movie was out yet, and I was heard they weren't on TV.
Based.
Okay, they normally are though, right?
Yeah,
Because
Tim
not
said, where's
all,
the camera?
not all of our committees film their meetings, so I wasn't sure. Thank you, John.
So anyway, minutes will be available, but a recap, so I did a little typing, these are not 100% accurate. Red Cross requesting $500. They didn't receive any funds in 2017. Last year they had 2 CPR trainings that they held in Tilton. They charged for it, but they don't know how much they charged. There were no fires in Tilton last year, which was good.
Excuse me?
They did not.
fires.
Oh, Red Cross didn't attend
Yeah.
fires, okay.
They didn't serve any service members in Tilton during 17. Nobody applied for any service. They did one service, smoke detector service, and that's available through the website. And let's see. They didn't receive a request for funding. Okay, so some of the questions, they do not receive funding from Belknap County, they stated. They only get it from towns. CPR trainings cost money. Why didn't they show up when they were scheduled to be here for the budget committee last year? And why didn't they pick up their checks in the past when they were available? And they said they just said personnel that didn't attend to it.
They don't need it.
So, that's the Red
They don't need
Cross.
it.
New Beginning showed up. They're requesting $1,575. They served over 700 people last year in the community, not just ours. They're on track for 800 more. They don't charge fees for the services. They did just receive some grants that will be good for the next 3 years from the feds. That's helping them out a lot. They're starting prevention programs this year in the Tilton schools. They're open to men as well. They said that they do have an increase, and it's due to the opioids, but mostly because of the lack of money in the family and family support that's leaving people in distress and having to go to New Beginnings and not actually the drug use themselves, and their facilities are drug-free. However, if somebody's a user, it doesn't mean that they can't be there, because they do need help, but they just can't be up here or doing it while they're there. They do not receive any funding from Belknap County, they stated. They have a staffing of 7. They solicit funds from all towns, and they don't get a lot. Let's see. Future Insight showed up. They servicing 15 people in Tilton. They service the whole state. They have 31 employees, 7 workers, and about 200 and something volunteers. They served 3,500 people in the state last year. Some of the questions, what other community is funding them? And they stated the only other community that's funding them was Meredith for $1,000, and that's it. They said they do not receive any funding from Belknap County, and that they tried. 60% of their funding goes to services. State funding covers 40% of the services, and that more details will be out. It just seemed a little odd because I had received some information that they did not get money from Meredith, or they didn't request money from Meredith because they were all set this year, and that they had received money from Belknap County. They have about, I think it was $9 to $10 million in assets.
They have a boatload of money.
And endowments, and they also get money for their services from Medicaid and Blue Cross Blue Shield and that too. So, one of the budget committee members stated that he ran some numbers through it, and he said that percentage of money spent versus the money that they give out or receive is way up. He's going to look into it more for next week.
Oh, good.
And that was it for budget committee. That's all I'm here to tell you about. Here.
No problem. Just a reminder that for Kevin, paving for next year, what are the projects and where are we on getting them out to bid? Second thing would be under DPW report, burn brush during rainstorms. We have a chipper that we got for free, and is it highway? Why aren't we using that instead?
I know the answer to that because I asked him yesterday.
Okay.
They were chipping and they ended up with big mountains of chips. And he was starting to run out of places to put it. So some of the stuff he doesn't chip. He still has chips, but some of it he burns when it's raining because he doesn't need a permit. That's why he's still using the chipper.
Do we offer those chips to the
That's-
public?
That
Yes.
would be,
The
maybe we
people
need
so-
to advertise more.
Yeah.
And maybe that's it. Maybe that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. We need to advertise, or maybe we could even
And-
sell them to
Well, it's like,
somebody. I
well,
don't
it's
know.
like with the, do you mix it in with the leaves and keep turning those to create a good mulch? Because
They managed the piles. He was running out of space the way it was. So he's been taking to burning some of the debris, not all of it, but some of it.
so we have no town properties that could use mulch.
That's unknown to me, and I don't know how he manages the mulch pile, just what I told him.
Okay.
Question?
I was just gonna say, I wonder if he's, or if DPW's ever reached out to the biomass plants like in Bridgewater, because they take merits wood chips. And with this recent legislation, when we thought the biomass plants were going to close, we were over in Meredith trying to figure out what we were going to do with all these wood chips, but now that's been reversed.
Well, that might be a great place to put it.
What is, oh, man.
Does Meredith truck it with their DPW equipment, or do they hire someone with a trailer to?
I believe that, trying to think about this, I think that we got paid for our wood chips, but now I'll have to check. We were using Alexandria. Alexandria closed, so I don't know if it's a different arrangement with Bridgewater.
There's also landscapers that'll buy them. There was a fellow down
Can I
in
say
Concord
something
that
about
would buy them.
We pick up and we gather, a lot of people bring invasive species down there. If you put Japanese knotweed and you chip them up and put that in the wood pile, somebody takes them home and puts them in their garden, they now have spread invasive species into their garden, which would,
We shouldn't be chipping.
you can vouch for like
Japanese knotweed.
We shouldn't be chipping that.
But it's not a wood.
knotweed, I wouldn't think.
It's not
But
wood.
that doesn't mean it doesn't
It's
come
brush.
in.
I'd hate to think
It's
that they were
brush.
chipping it.
Oh, I don't know that. Maybe
Right,
that's
I
what
mean,
he's
That's a
burning.
good point.
so if we can get them off to as biomass.
Right.
Get them out of town.
I'll talk to Kevin, and I, by the way, I did talk to Kevin about your question about the paving, and, you know, getting on that for the sidewalks and roads and getting the bids out, so.
Thank you.
All right, ready? December 1st is spaghetti supper at the senior center. It was rescheduled from October, I'm sorry, to December 1st. I know that is also the Christmas party, but I think it's going to coincide with it right afterwards. Cedar Street, I know Kevin's been working very hard and diligent on the pothole situation, and they filled in with ledge pack, which is now 2 potholes instead of 1, just for an FYI. Can we look up, this is just an FYI, to kind of look at the Tilton School Agreement. How many years do we have for the Tilton School Agreement? Is it a 5-year agreement?
Should be coming up.
So it should be coming up, the tax agreement. So we should be looking at that in the year before to try to figure out when that is. So maybe we could pull that up and take a look at that. Today I had an opportunity as a bus driver to drive special needs and freshmen at the Guilford School for their community day. And what they did was community work throughout their town, unlike what Tilton School does for our community for seniors. They did it for their town.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a group today that I dropped off at the elementary school. They scraped and repainted their fence. I dropped a group off at the cemetery. They raked and pulled up all the flags and saved them in a bucket with the caretaker of the cemetery. I went over to the Guilford covered bridge by the Guilford PD, and they raked leaves over there, and they repaired a couple of picnic benches that they did. It was very impressive what the work that the different groups did, and it wasn't just raking leaves. And they also got special needs children involved in it as well. All freshmen did this. They did it from 10 a.m. until 1:45. And I'm just wondering if we could reach out to the school, Winnisquam, and to Tilton School and see if we can't do that, but do it with town property, cemeteries, say the ball field, Tilton, the Parks Commission, the island. I mean, there's a lot of things here that we can do in town that can be repaired and fixed and not have to use public works resources to do when we have a lot of school children that need
That
to
teaches them
fulfill,
about community service.
and fulfill the
Most
community.
important lesson out of it.
Right. They all have a certain amount of community hours that they have to fulfill. Why not fulfill it in the town that they're learning about it? So that's all I have to say about that. And don't forget the Christmas parade on December 1st.
My turn. I'm always
I
last.
thought you already had a turn.
No, I had a point that wasn't a selectmen's issue, I said.
Oh, we thought you already had a turn. They started at that end.
No, I
You wanna make a motion
I've
to
been
adjourn?
saving it. Sleigh. The park commissioners have been offered a sleigh donated. And they would like to know, the commissioners, if Public Works could go down and pick it up and bring it up here, and then it would be stored at Public Works.
Where is it?
Concord, yeah.
Concord Christian Academy.
A real sleigh?
What does that cost?
It's free.
Oh, no, the sleigh is free to
Is it,
take away.
is it a trailer?
But we
Is
have
it
to
one
send
of our
Public
12-foot
Works, and then it has
trailers?
to be restored, partly correct.
I said stored at Public Works, not restored.
Yeah, but is it
We
usable?
can't work,
Yeah.
how are we gonna store it at Public Works?
It's about 5 feet by 3.5 feet by 3 feet high or something like that.
But where are we going to store it?
Hang it with the
What did
Sanders.
Kevin say?
He'd find a place for it.
He said he would find a place for it?
What do you propose to do with it?
Use it.
For what?
The Christmas parade.
With a horse? Is it a horse
Yeah,
sleigh
put
or
wheels
it's
on it.
not?
We'll put it on Public Works trailer. They'll decorate it like they do for the Christmas event and tow Santa Claus. Santa in the sleigh.
And the selectmen can put antlers on and
We could, we could take the boats.
I'd say go for it. I think that would be great.
But there's always an issue of, is there a sleigh for Santa for the Christmas parade? So this would resolve that.
Have you looked at the sleigh to see what the condition is?
I have not, but
I tried to find it on,
Marina Sumner did.
And this is not something that's gonna cost a lot of money to put back together or make it safe, you don't wanna put
No, they
Santa
intend
in
to
there.
use it December 1st.
yeah, she said it's very heavy.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
not,
That's okay, but the sides aren't falling off or the rails or,
evidently not.
I just wanna make sure it's not gonna cost us
That'd be
$2,000 to
fine.
make it safe. Other than that, I have no objection.
Is everybody all right with Public Works going down and picking that up?
Deal.
What did you call that?
A,
D.
No, not yet.
I trust that Kevin's gonna find a place to store this for all summer and winter. I just can't imagine a place down there to do it.
Just leave it outside, cover it with canvas, keep it off the ground.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be stored in a museum.
It's not gonna go up in the mezzanine or anything, right?
No, he can store it outside, keep the thing off the ground, put
I say
a
yes.
tarp over it.
I say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Go.
Would you talk to Kevin, ask him to, thank you. Christmas lights, as Joe brought up. The commissioners met and talked about the lights. Can we authorize Public Works to start lighting? The Christmas event is December 1st. And I thought it would be nice if we said, go ahead and get it done. They
Yep.
can fit it in before it gets freezing cold.
Yep.
I'm gonna pick up the lights for the chains and get my minions out there so I can do that before my fingers are freezing off.
They'll be putting up the lights at the
So,
island as well.
yeah, so the island, they'll check the big tree, Riverfront Park. They do the trees, the commissioners do the pavilion, I usually do the chain.
Well, don't we have somebody that volunteered every year to do the big tree?
No, well, we've got a
Asplund did it.
couple.
Yes, Asplund.
Asplund did it one year.
And they said they would come back every year to do it.
Maybe Kevin could check into that.
Asplund?
Asplund. Kevin did
Send
it
them a
once.
thank you note for doing it
Um,
last year.
The only variable is Vest Pocket Park.
Yeah.
That's always been volunteered, but the commissioners didn't discuss that Monday night, so I don't know what the plan is for that.
The JP usually does it.
Right, but like I said, I don't know what the plan is, so, is there any objection if if that doesn't go through, if Public Works does Vest Pocket, we should have enough lights and stuff.
I think, yeah, I try real hard to get the,
As I was saying, I'm just trying to fill in a hole. I suspect that they'll come forward again, but we'll see.
let's,
All right,
Who does Best Pocket?
J.P. Carter. The last issue is, I want your permission to have Public Works pressure wash the pavilion bricks. That's never been done since the park opened.
Oh, wait a minute now. Hold on one second. Before you have Public Works pressure wash those bricks, I asked for the senior center porch to be pressure washed last February, and I still haven't got it done.
Oh,
Excuse me.
well, anyway,
the front porch,
Yes,
the walls or just the flooring?
the flooring and the ramp, just so that we could get it
So-
painted.
we have a Christmas event December 1st.
Oh yeah, now we're gonna play the trump card now.
Which bricks are we referring? Wall or?
The floor, especially in the picnic area. It is, we still have wax from that event that took place.
Oh,
The amount of food and filth that's on it is incredible.
Okay, the last thing I remember, and you have to check with Kevin, the problem is that their pressure washer is a little different than the pressure washer we are thinking of. Theirs uses like hot steam type cleaning.
I talked to Kevin about it before I even brought it up, and he said there was no problem.
Okay.
Isn't it both hot and cold?
I believe so.
and is he immediately gonna go up and do the
And is
senior
the water
center?
already shut off at
Oh, no,
the
just
gazebo?
the-
I mean, at the park?
Hmm?
So how is it going to water if you shut and drained all the water?
I don't know, but he's the one that shut it off, so he.
I think he's got.
I know they have a container for
Yeah.
water, because
Yeah.
they used to use it to water the plants on Main Street.
Well, there you go.
Arthur
Okay,
built it,
whatever, yeah.
so.
I don't-
But if you're not have any objections, I'd like him to.
I have an
It
objection.
really is filthy. So, could you remind him?
Senior center.
He probably doesn't know about the senior center pressure
Let the
washing.
record show. It's in the minutes of February 18th. It's in the minutes. I
But this
asked
is
for
a
it to
new
be pressure.
director.
I understand that it's a new director, but I still,
I can get-
So perhaps you could ask
as
him.
a selectman, I asked for this to be happened.
So could you
Yeah.
let him know about the
Yes.
senior center?
Still waiting.
I do have one last thing when you're.
Too late in the
I'm
season
good.
now.
Where at the senior center, what?
The front porch and the ramp,
That's-
but it's
that's
too
on
late
the
this
ramp.
season. Because it has to be, because I want to put the,
You want to repaint it?
I want to put the Thompson's seal on it, and we can't do
So
it.
in the spring?
This spring.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
too,
My
February
last
17th and 19th, you can bring it up again a year later.
I brought it up in February
Oh,
18th
that's-
for the spring,
Nice.
Do
just
it next year.
still gonna happen.
And so my very last
What
thing.
happens when we start getting late in the meeting?
No, I got one last thing, and this is important, otherwise I'd let it go. There was some talk about disappointment amongst the employees
Oh,
about the
thanks,
Christmas
Joe.
party.
Thank you, Joe.
And I think that we should make some sort of a choice now to either have the party or disappoint the employees. Now, that's probably the wrong way for me to put it. But the only reason I said I was in agreement about doing it with the Christmas party was 'cause I didn't think they cared. I really did.
I think we should have the Christmas party. That's what I said last
The
week.
problem that we got involved in was, should we have it on the Friday, so that everyone could take the day off on Friday, and then, Monday, and then that would, we left the town clerk, tax collector's office still open for business,
On
while
Christmas
everybody
Eve.
else was going to have it off.
On Friday.
I'd like
No,
to make
on Monday.
a motion that we have the Christmas party beginning at 11:30 a.m. on Monday.
Monday,
Second.
and then the rest of the day is off.
These heart to 10 sizes. Where's that?
And then after the Christmas party, everybody's done.
Yes.
It's a good idea.
I call the question.
Oh, yeah.
Are
All those in favor
you
say
gonna, hold on a
Aye.
minute,
aye.
you're gonna direct the town administrator to make sure that we've got enough food to supplement the employees and where to go and all of that stuff?
Can we send out an invitation RSVP to find out how many are coming? Because there's no sense buying for 50 if 15 show.
Public's hard to arrange.
It's all about. the
So my,
camaraderie.
did we call for the vote?
I called the question, we actually
All those
started
in
to
favor
vote.
say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Who?
I made the motion.
He made the motion.
So Jeannie, you're gonna be in charge of getting food. We usually go to different places in the town.
I'm guessing Gail will be back by then, Gail's got experience.
Gail's good at this.
Okay, John made the motion, who seconded it?
Me,
Joe
sure.
Ward.
Give it to Joe.
And then I do have one last thing.
No, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
You took it
Those
right
in
out of
favor say aye.
Aye. You took it right out of my
I
mouth.
know I did, I know I
Oh, is
did.
that what you want?
That was my one last thing. Okay then.
Oh.
I had one more thing, but
I almost said something extremely bad there.
It's way past my bedtime and I haven't even eaten supper yet.
Okay then. It was fun. You should have been here.